We're getting a second copy of the starting music. Welcome, everybody. This is the show that's so good we decided to start it twice. I mean, that's just the way this works. We know how much you guys love my dad jokes, my dad rock. There we go. Hey, everybody, this is The Hang Up. It's my Wednesday night show. I'm Matt. Welcome. This is The Line. It's a call-in network, and we're going to be taking calls. So right now, you can start getting your calls in at 720-619-2288 or over the internet at Call-In Studio. The link is down below this video if you're watching it right now. We are always eager to get people in to defend their God, the existence of God, the rationality, the justification for believing in any God, let alone theirs in particular. Tonight, I'd love for people to call in to defend their view on morality, especially if it's coming from a God, because I have lots of objections to claims about morality that have been happening in the last few days. And of course, because it's Wednesday and I don't just have to talk about religion, if you want to call in and defend MAGA, well, I highly doubt that you do at this point. It's absolutely indefensible. And the people who tend to pretend to defend MAGA when they call in, this is just bots and trolls. Everybody knows it's indefensible, which is why they've stopped trying. They're still going to support it, but they know that from a moral standpoint, from a legal standpoint, it's absolutely awful. It seems that almost every accusation from them is an admission. And there's some degree of hypocrisy in virtually every decision they make. Trump pardons the January 6th insurrectionists, but then leverages the Justice Department to go after his political enemies, even to the point of essentially getting lawyers mocked, laughed at, probably disbarred, all trying to do things that just aren't legal because the other people who came after Trump did it right. He's a 34-time felon, a sex pest, and right now he's defending a dead child sex trafficker. It's wild. He pardons drug traffickers while claiming that he's going after the drug traffickers, and they're basically just blowing up boats that couldn't possibly get here from a place that isn't creating fentanyl. It is absolutely wild. They're openly lying. Everybody knows it. Lie. And I'm wondering why the MAGA supporters don't care, and why it killed people for things that, even if they were guilty of those crimes don't carry the death penalty. There's not a death penalty for trafficking drugs, and you don't have jurisdiction there. And you're not at war. And the other day, after blowing up a boat, evidently there were a couple survivors in the water, and the reports are coming in, not just that somebody, Hegseth, is trying to blame it on a general, but he's fully got that general's back. Somebody gave the order to kill them. Survivors floating in the water. One of the prime examples, I can hear somebody's mic open, by the way, and myself reflected, but one of the prime examples of, hey, here's the limits on what you're supposed to do. Wounded combatants. Even if you were in a state of war, it would be a war crime to do that. And since we're not in a state of war, it's just a crime to do that. And finally, some people are pushing back on Hegseth and if you just listen to him talk, he doesn't care. And we knew this beforehand. He flatly said in his little address to the generals, this is what we're going to do. We don't need to pay any attention to those rules of engagement. We don't need to follow those silly rules. We're going to go out and kill them good. The other day, when several of our representatives posted a reminder to the troops that they not only should not follow unlawful orders, but they are legally obligated to not follow those orders. And I talked about that last week. Somebody came on and asked me, they're like, well, what was the unlawful order? And I said, I didn't say there was an unlawful order, and neither did these individuals. And whether or not there has been an unlawful order is irrelevant to whether or not there's a problem with someone saying, don't follow unlawful orders. It's literally taught to all of us in boot camp. And for Trump to call them traitors, seditionists, deserving of the death penalty, who should be hanged, for him to say and retweet those messages about something that is not only perfectly legal to say, but it's something that if, Bone Spurs had actually, joined the military, he would have heard about it in boot camp as well. But let's be honest, that was never going to happen. But now we know of even more orders that are almost certainly unlawful, including the killing of those guys in the water after the boat's blown up. There's no reason we couldn't be capturing these boats, showing that these people are doing something illegal, showing that they're intending to sell to Americans and harm Americans and violate the law, all those things that require due process in order to show here are the people who are doing wrong. We're going to convict them. No. We don't need to do any of that. Let's just kill them. There are pederasts and child sex traffickers, and they liked to pretend that this is what they were running for. We're going to release the Epstein files. We're going to shut this down. Let me remind you, I saw this on a meme, so this is not mine. But let me remind you of the things that MAGA have believed. They believed that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring from a pizza parlor basement that did not even exist. They believed that schools were performing transgender surgeries. They believed that the Haitians were eating cats and dogs. Where'd that story go? Oh, it didn't go anywhere. And that abortions were happening after people were born. They believe things that are demonstrably impossible and proven to not be the case, but believing that Trump, who's a convicted sex pest, an obvious liar, is probably doing his best to hide his own complicitness or guilt in the Epstein files. Oh, that's a bridge too far. He wouldn't do that. And they won't even believe the facts about reality. Oh, he's making the economy better. No, he's not. But gas price is down. I just saw it. I filled up for like $2.60 yesterday, $2.59. You know why? First of all, I live in Texas, so gas is cheaper here generally. The other reason is it's the holidays. Every year around the holidays, the gas conglomerates lower the gas prices because more people are going to travel. They're going to make their money, and they're going to sell more so they can reduce the price, and they make everybody feel good. And by the way, it serves the president's narrative. But the world isn't getting cheaper. And while they did add new jobs, there was also increased job loss as well. I was raised a fundamentalist Christian, a Southern Baptist, and I had very specific values. And now the ministers that taught me and that I grew up with, and my own parents, have set aside those values to prioritize something else. The most common thing that they prioritize is abortion. And if you say that that's your one and only issue, then what you end up doing is saying, yes, we know we've already won on this, but we need to keep it illegal. We need to end this particular atrocity. And so by standing up against abortion, reproductive rights, you end up sanctioning genocide, child sex trafficking, war crimes, the destruction of the economy, everything. Nothing else matters. And what's strange to me is that we know that religiosity is on the decline. Its significance is weighing. In a recent Gallup poll, the people who said that religion was an important part of their daily life was around 66% in America in 2015. 10 years later, that percentage is now 49%. That is the largest drop in any 10-year period since 2007. And it's a failure to recognize that despite the fact that religiosity seems less important to people, it's louder and more important and has more power right now as Christian nationalist organizations effectively take over the United States government. So even though they say it's not an important part of their daily life, they are both they are both being used on behalf of their lip service to their religion that they want to keep up, and they are actively complicit in using that religion against each other as well. What a weird world where the new soon-to-be mayor of New York City is a Muslim who's more moral than the MAGA Christians. And by quite a bit, I would say. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still have my same objections to Islam and Christianity, Judaism, Scientology, but the individuals, though, there are Christians that I'm friends with. There are Christians who are incredibly moral people, despite the way their religion seems to cause people to trend. I have loads of objections to moral positions in the Bible. The notions about slavery and inequality and genocide and substitutionary atonement. And I mean, there's very few things in there that I think are genuinely good examples of moral instruction. And the ones that are incredibly obvious, and nobody needed a Bible to say, hey, you know what? Let's not kill each other. Let's not steal things from people. Let's not lie to people. We didn't need any instruction for that. But, I'm glad it's there, because it seems that there's some people who are already going to cherry pick from their religion the things that are most convenient for them and then use the rest of them as weapons against people. Now, when I was a Christian, very opposed to queer things. Homosexuality is an abomination that, violates God's natural order and blah, 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 blah. But my instruction from my parents was that that's not up to me. Sin is God's realm. My duty is to love them and be a conduit for the Holy Spirit to work in their lives so that they might be convicted of their sin and repent and gain salvation. That's not the Christianity that is being used. It's certainly not the one that the Easter, Christmas, lip service, cafeteria Christians have ever cared about. But what's happening is closer to Westboro Baptist Church than to the First Baptist Church of Harvester, the church that I went to. And we were some right-wing, Ronald Reagan-loving, anti-abortion, anti-queer, but make the world a better place and let the Holy Spirit move through you. I don't get what the purpose is of taking your religion, picking out the parts that are most consistent with allowing you to hate and vilify and marginalize the people that you'd like to hate and vilify and marginalize. I guess it makes you feel superior. You're not. When I say every accusation's an admission, I mean, there were two stories I read this morning. One of them is about a Florida teacher. 47-year-old David McEwen, who taught 6th grade at United Brethren in Christ Academy. So he's a teacher at a Christian Christian school. And there was a Discord server where he was sharing child sexual abuse material. I'm going to start censoring my language now so the rest of this doesn't get demonetized or cut off. Investigators found that he had shared files and chats with other users while using the school's Wi-Fi during school hours. The teacher shared students' personal information and photos, including some sexually explicit photos that appear to have been generated using AI. So he took actual photos of the students in his class and had AI generate sexually explicit content from those. Whichever one of you went out there went and said that it's AI generated and no actual child was hurt. There's somebody out there that was the first thought in your brain. Please go get help. Please go get help. In addition to the child pornography, police also found images of himself engaging in sexual acts with the family pet. Florida Attorney General James Uthmire said the abuse and trauma this predator inflicted is sick and he deserves every moment of his sentence. We will always seek the longest sentence possible for anyone who harms innocent children or defenseless animals. He was charged with 1 count of aggravated possession of child pornography, 18 counts of possession of child pornography, and 6 counts of sexual conduct with an animal, and he was sentenced to 135 years in prison. The other story I'm just going to read the headline, but I'm going to censor the headline. And you'll understand why immediately. A right-wing Indiana racist, Johnny Knuckles, has been arrested for brutally blank 2-year-old. Two-year-old's in the hospital. I know there's somebody out there that's like, stop it, Matt, that's a cheap shot. I'm not saying that these guys represent the best of Christianity or even normative Christianity. I'm not saying that these guys represent the best of MAGA or even normative MAGA. But if you think I couldn't sit here and do a search and find story after 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 story of self-professed Christians, self-professed MAGA folks railing against homosexuality and child SA and all kinds of stuff, only to be exposed as doing the very thing that they're railing against, you're nuts or you're lying, because it's incredibly easy. We see these stories all the time. It's funny how good Christians can attack queer folks for merely existing, or being consenting adults minding their own fucking business and wishing to largely be left alone. How these good Christians, good Muslims, good Jews can laugh and mock at the liberal tears when we're seeking healthcare, human rights, basic dignity, and the rule of law. Medical expenses are all going up. Mine's going up 50 some odd, or almost 50%. I will probably die without it. And so I will start in January, start paying about $1,600 a month just to cover me. Straight up. So first of all, huge thank you to everybody who contributes with super chats and supporting the network and becoming sponsors and all that. That's great. You're doing your best to offset the way the government is fucking me and trying to get me to die. And if I stop with the healthcare, there is some option that I might be able to make use of my VA benefits to get some coverage that way. Though what sort of coverage and what sort of healthcare I get is unknown, but I'm going to look into that because otherwise I'm just going to go broke. Not broke, bankrupt. This is not a pity me or donate. By all means, donate because it helps everybody here on the line. I am in a better position than a number of other people, including those who are on the line. But medical bankruptcy is not remotely outside the realm of possibility. Here's a quick question for you. I'm going to name a country, and you see if you can guess how many individual people file bankruptcy for medical debt in that country every year. Germany, 0. France, 0. The UK, 0. Japan, 0. You sensing a trend? Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, 0. Italy, Australia, Canada, Spain, Portugal, 0. Iceland, Netherlands, 0. 15 countries. 0 instances of bankruptcy for medical debt per year. You know how many people are going to have to file medical bankruptcy in the United States this year and on average every year? 530,000. 530,000 Americans are going to go bankrupt trying to stay alive. 530,000 Americans who are having their rights denied, whose rights and safeties and securities are not being protected, who don't have any sort of right or access to health care in the way that they should, who aren't making necessarily a living wage, who aren't permitted to exist as they are, interact with reality as they are, all because it violates somebody's religion or somebody's bigotry or both. 530,000 Americans per year. That's just bankruptcy for medical debt. It's cheaper to let you die. Stop hiding the Epstein files. Stop killing people. Stop violating due process. Just stop. My guest tonight, Justin from Deconstruction, almost a destruction zone. Deconstruction zone. It's a wild world we find ourselves in. Justin, you and I were talking before we started. I found my way out of Christianity kind of as some of my positions on morality were changing. They changed more after I was able to finally let go of the Bible. How did your morality change, and how did that play out with both any support of, Christianity, right-wing stuff, etc.?
Well, I think one of the first things I noticed when I started to deconstruct, and I conferred with a lot of other people to see what their order of operation was. One of the first thing I discovered is some of the people groups that you're taught that like these are bad people, almost immediately your brain flips a switch. I'm like, oh, these are actually pretty decent people. And so I'm probably thinking, like most people, the LGBT community, we're told we have to love the sinner, but they're still sinners, and this is bad because God said so. But almost immediately, as soon as you drop your religion, there is zero reason whatsoever at all to have a problem with this community. There are no issues whatsoever. And I found that it was eye-opening for me, because I was like, oh, my prejudice against some people was literally just because of my religion and my religion alone. And that made me start thinking about other things. Well, what else was I doing only because of my religion? And it turns out it's a couple things.
Yeah, it's one of those, the quote from Bertrand Russell that it's a wise thing now and again to hang a question mark on things you've long taken for granted. We've both done that with regard to all aspects of our former religions, both the truth of the claims, but also the moral valuation of the claims. And there were some eye-opening moments for me while I was in the Navy. I was in, during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I've talked before about how there were guys who worked for me that we had to process out because they were gay and it became known. And these were, I mean, genuinely some of the best people that we had, best workers, decent people. They just wanted to be left alone and get a career. And they ended up losing a career because somebody else doesn't like gay people, and decided when they found out they were going to, literally one of them waited until one of the guys in my division got a letter from his boyfriend. And instead of locking it in his locker when he was done with it, he just stuffed it underneath his mattress. And this guy who hates homosexuals saw him do it. And then when he left, he went over and stole that letter and then took it up to the master at arms and said, "Hey, I found this. I think it's from this dude's boyfriend." And that lie and violation of privacy led to that individual being kicked out of the military and losing their career. There were a number of things like that made me just say, I know there's people out there and they're going to be like, "Oh, yeah, God's given you over to a reprobate mind. Satan convinced you that something that is immoral is actually good." But I mean, it's way more than that. Matthew's probably my least favorite book. It's not just because I'm named after it, but it's the most clunky and ridiculous, I think, of the Gospels, or at least of the Synoptic Gospels. And it's because the author of Matthew, whoever it is, because we don't know, is constantly trying to make things seem more significant than they are, including inventing potential prophecies, or at least coming up with prophecies that we don't know anything about in order to try to do it. But there were still, one of the first things I did for my Patreon channel is I went through the Sermon on the Mount, because I would hear Dawkins talk about, Jesus said wonderful things in Sermon on the Mount. And I was like, really? Because certainly there are some things there that any one of us could probably say, "Oh, that's a good thing. Hey, turn the other cheek, blessed are the meek, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much." But there's a lot of other things in there that are crap. But one of the things that struck me is one of the issues, or one of the things that I thought wasn't crap, the justification for it was crap, but this was still a good thing for a different justification. And that's Matthew 25 from like 31 to 40, I guess, where it talks about
great passage,
God coming back. Yeah. When Jesus comes back and he's like, "Hey, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me." And it leads up to they're like, "When did we do that for you?" And he's like, "Oh, you idiots, you didn't notice a parable. I mean that when you did this for the least of us, you did it to me." And therefore, the whole point is just a really simple, please be kind to people. Help them out. And so it's the godless folks in a good chunk on the left, who are trying to get people healthcare, who are trying to get people housing, who are trying to get people medicine, who are trying to get people basic income, who are trying to make sure that people have health and safety and security, and that we're exercising compassion for them. And yet it is the Christian right in Austin, the liberal, hippie, weed-smoking, swim naked in town, lake town, all of which is changing. You're not getting weed here right now. This town, where there are drag queens, homeless drag queens, having parties on the street, living in tents, all the Christian right went through and cleaned up the city. See, Austin has pretty good weather. It's a little chilly right now. It's under 50, and it might get down to freezing off and on over the next couple of weeks. And this is the worst period of time to be homeless, living in Austin. But it's better to be homeless in Austin right now than to just be homeless in Vermont or Canada or Minnesota or any of those other places where you will just freeze and we'll find you in the spring. And so what are they doing? They're cleaning out all the homeless camps, shutting it all down. Why? It's an eyesore. I bet it is an eyesore. You know what? When I find that when my eyes hurt, I like to wash my face and then maybe rub my eyes. And then if my eyes continue to hurt, try to figure out what's actually causing it. In this case, the hurt is coming from inside your brain. You're looking at things that make you uncomfortable because you're not doing enough, because you don't care enough, because as a Christian, you feel like a hypocrite. And then we have down on I-35, just under 6th Street, on the weekends, massive gatherings of homeless people, and churches come down and have a great big service under the underpass, and they will hand out food. And people are like, yay, go. Except that you don't get the food until you listen to the sermon.
Mm-hmm.
Sandwiches shouldn't come with strings attached. And so the Humanists Helping the Homeless and the Atheists Humanly Helping Homeless, those organizations, we would go down there. And I say I went with them a couple of times. There were people who were there every week. Please do not include me in the do-gooders who were doing it right. I just went on occasion. But we would go down there and hand out socks and food and all the things that you need. And nothing, no strings. You didn't have to listen to the sermon. And what was a common question they would ask us? Hey, what church are you guys with? We're not with any church. We just wanted you to have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened? I mean, I didn't get more immoral. The things that I valued, compassion, all the things that I would still advocate for, the things I think I'm advocating for when I advocate for recovering from religion and all these other these things are, despite the fact that they are not consistent with Christian doctrine regarding soteriology and salvation.
I was still kind of right-wing. I deconstructed from right-wingism way before Christianity, but there's a common phrase that would be brought up when talking about government programs, and I would hear often like, well, it's not the job of the government to help the homeless people, that's the job of the church. I'm like, well, they're not doing it. Until you start doing your job, we have no other option, right? But the reality is they have no intention of doing it. They just don't want to put any taxes forward, and they want to have an excuse for why things aren't getting done.
Yeah, and I would also say, if you think it's a job of the church, great. You're free to do that job. But the government, our government, a secular government, is not in any kind of position where it should or could ever legally leave a responsibility to its citizens up to a religious organization. Certainly, you can applaud them, maybe even reduce their taxes or give them, heaven forbid, tax-free status that they get by default, if they can make a showing that they're doing something in the public interest. But if they can't, then they should be paying taxes like everybody else, because the fire trucks don't get to churches any slower than they get to my house. They're not any more effective anywhere else. But I think when they say it's not the government's job, I think it absolutely is, because people have this view that the government is like it's an us and them thing. And ours is a participatory government where we are the government. What's happened is there's a separate class or sect of people who, once they become the government, seem to be separate from the rest of us. They're beholden to special interests and donors and worried about getting elected the next time. And they're willing to sacrifice 10 good things to do the 2 good things that they really wanted to focus on individually. And who knows if any of those will actually happen. And so people are dying. And freedom is dying. But we actually have callers on the line. Happy to start taking calls. As a reminder, this show here is The Hang Up. It's on Wednesday right here on the line. But this network you need to subscribe to, because there's shows other days and other times and lots of stuff going on, including the Transline and Colin show on Thursdays at 2. Starting this Sunday, the early Sunday show will be moved from 2 p.m. Central to 1 p.m. Central. So everything will be like an hour earlier. So, when you're done with church, you could go eat with everybody. But if you don't think you're going to have time, eat at home. It's cheaper. And then you can call in and engage with us and tell us what you learned in Sunday school, what you learned in service. Maybe you can tell us how your church is different and better than the ones we're complaining about. I don't need to rehash it all again. And then there's the Sunday show after dark. There are Cus I Wanna in between. And then Monday is Skeptalk. Tuesday is Chewed Gum. And then Wednesday we'll be back here. And honestly, I don't know who's on any of the shows. I'm sure this is my failing. I'm sure the producers have put together a schedule that I haven't actually looked at. But Arden had to leave town, and I'm home alone, working on Reptile Expo stuff and countless other things. And so I let some stuff slide, especially when they said, hey, tonight you're on with Justin. And I was like, cool, I don't have to do any fucking work at all. I can just do an intro and we'll take calls and it'll all be good. So Justin, are you ready to go to work?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Sweet. Let's have some fun. Let's see if we can maybe get some good conversation, some good explanation. James is calling from Nevada. Pronouns are he or they. James says, God is consciousness. Hey, James, how are you? You're on with Justin and Matt.
Hello, I'm good. I hope you guys are doing good too. I've watched your guys' show before a bit. Like back in May of this year, I was watching quite a bit of it, and it did help me deconstruct like a lot of my Christian beliefs that I had at the time. And yeah, now I'm kind of like in a different point where, I mean, yeah, I think God is within us all, but yeah.
What does that mean?
I think just the true essence of who we are and the true essence of like everything is just God.
So God isn't an agent that has any thoughts?
No, not necessarily. I don't think God has like its own thoughts. It's not really like a being. You can view it as like a personal being if you're like trying to pray to it, but it's not, you know.
Well, I'm
like,
okay. When you say so, if you don't think it's an agent, you don't think a being. What would you describe as the features of this God?
I would say it's ever present and perfect.
Okay. How would you demonstrate perfection? Because as far as I can tell, perfection isn't possible, and it's not possible to demonstrate. So if you think that God is perfect, how would you ever? I don't know. Without even. Wow, I'm so confused.
I'm sorry. I'm very nervous. I wasn't expecting to be the first person brought on.
Well, you win. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, you and I agree that reality exists, right?
Yes.
Man, there was a lot of hesitation for the. I was expecting that to be like the no-brainer, instant agreement.
Well, it's because we can never truly access reality in an unfiltered way. We're always filtering reality, so.
But
it's hard for
even
us
to access it in a filtered way, doesn't that mean there is a reality?
Yes.
Cool.
I would agree.
So we can at least agree reality exists, and we can also agree, I guess, that individual perceptions or understandings of reality can be wrong and have been wrong, right?
Yes.
Cool. What does your God add to what I would describe as reality?
So it's the ability to have radical faith within yourself and what you can accomplish.
Buddy, you can get that with some good encouragement from a friend. You don't need to invent a God for that.
Or a shot of bourbon. Well, see, the weird thing is that I don't find reality perfect. And I don't find faith perfect. I think faith is actually, I'm pretty disgusted by faith, because faith is the excuse people give for believing things without good reason. But you're saying that what your God adds to reality is the ability to have radical faith within oneself. I don't know why that's a good thing, and I don't know how a God can do that.
I would say it's a good thing, because if you really want to create something in this world, you have to like trust yourself. Like, yes, you can have other friends and stuff to give you motivation and stuff, but if you're constantly relying on other people, then you need to be able to have that strong foundation within yourself.
I'm going to simultaneously win. I'm going to simultaneously win and lose the argument, and then take a half a step back so that Justin can get in here. Did Hitler have radical faith with himself?
I would say no. I would say he
okay.
The fact that he killed himself, I mean, like, how much faith did he have in himself, to in the end?
So you're saying that when the tide turns against someone and they don't think that they have any other options, and they're then willing to kill themselves, that they didn't have radical faith in themselves when they were setting themselves up as chancellor to take over the world, exterminate the Jews, and turn the German master race into the leaders in the world? You don't think that took radical faith with oneself?
It's just the thing for me with Hitler is, like, he's just a very, like, in general, he seems like a very troubled guy. He was a very like obsessive kind of individual. I don't think he lived a very happy life, so
we didn't say anything about happiness. Okay. I'm gonna let Justin get in, because I don't have any way to understand your God right now, and I'm out of questions.
I got a couple questions for you, James. You said your God has no mind; it doesn't think. But you just said that it does things. How does it do things without a mind or agency?
It's like a possession sort of thing. It's you have to act as like a channel for that energy to come into you.
Okay, so
for that inspiration.
So what you're describing is like some metaphysical reality. You're not really describing a God. A God typically has agency. Do you understand the difference?
I mean, I feel like it's like I don't know. I don't think I understand the difference. I'm sorry.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say the clock strikes midnight tonight. Your God disappears, doesn't exist anymore. He, she, it, completely gone. What's different about the world when I wake up?
Just there's no sense of magic to it. There's no like imagination to it.
Children won't have imaginations anymore.
I mean, that's kind of like what growing up is. I mean, they're just trying to take the imagination out of you.
I mean, you grow up and you leave behind imaginary friends. We agree. What are you going to say, Matt?
I mean, this is just absolutely insulting, and I guess I'm sorry for it. But what you're describing is basically, it's funny that you would mention that's what growing up is, when everything you're telling me suggests that you're the one that's having difficulty growing up, that you've gotten rid of all of the common God definitions, but you just can't seem to break away from the concept. You need a God concept, even if it's completely useless, even if it does nothing, even if it has no agency, even if it has no desires, and yet you're telling us that you're the one that's grown up into a bigger, better God, but you can't describe it. You can't give characteristics of it. You've alternated between, it's the thing that gives you radical faith and confidence within yourself, which is really, I mean, Are you just using a God label to provide you comfort so that you don't have to say you don't actually believe in any kind of God?
No, I do pray to a God as if it's like a separate entity. I engage
Why?
in
It has no
conversations.
agency.
Yeah,
It can't
if
answer
your
your
God,
prayers.
I
I mean,
mean,
that's.
it,
Do you
I was
pray to
saying
the? Do
earlier,
you
it's
pray
like
to the
you
bubble
get
gum? Do you pray to
inspired.
the
Like,
bubble? Do you pray to the bubble gum machine at the barber shop? It can't answer your prayers either.
yeah,
It's not
I'll
agent.
I'll pray to like any object. Any object is
Why?
divine, you know?
Why? No, no,
Because
no, no.
anything.
Okay, no, 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 no. James, I promise.
Why
Please,
not?
please slow down. Please slow down and
Okay,
listen.
okay. Got you.
Because you're starting to sound comically ridiculous to the point where I no longer believe that you're sincere, and I'd rather not do that because, for all I know, you are. When you say you'll
Okay.
pray to anything, why? If you're praying to something and there's no reason to think that it can do any good, what are you getting out of praying? What are you getting out of praying to this can of energy drink?
I can pray that it gives me a good, amount of energy, and it doesn't give me anxiety.
What does that
I can
accomplish?
hope.
Does your prayer change whether or not it gives you anxiety?
It can prime your mind, because if
didn't ask.
you hope,
No.
yes, that does change it though. If you
No, it
hope
doesn't.
for the outcome, then it increases the likelihood of that outcome.
No,
Yeah,
it
James, can you
absolutely
do
fucking
that?
does it.
James, can
No?
you do all that without the God? Can I have hope
Can I
that
do all
something's
that?
going to happen without the God
I mean,
being
here's
involved?
the thing. This is why, like, I wouldn't even use the term
Hold on.
God, really.
I need a yes or no. I need a yes or no. Can I get the same outcome by having hope just in the product itself, or in some psychosomatic belief, or some placebo effect? Can I just do that myself?
You can do that.
Then the only one function your God has is now meaningless. You don't need it. Matt, I don't think this guy's for real. It's hard for me to believe that somebody would say these
No,
things
I
and
don't
still
either.
be for real about it.
James, does praying increase your chance of winning the lottery?
I mean, yeah.
No, it doesn't. Where's the demonstration that prayer increases your chance of winning the lottery, James?
If you're spending time focusing on that, that's just going to naturally increase the likelihood. It might not be by a very noticeable amount, but
No, I'm
it's
sorry,
going to be
James.
like by a
I'm sorry,
fraction of a
James.
percent.
I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry, James. But first of all, it needs to be a noticeable amount for you to say that it happened. But also, when I say, how does this increase your chances? You can't just say focusing on it increases the likelihood. What makes you think that focusing on it increases the likelihood that you'll win the lottery?
You buy more tickets. I mean,
No. Praying is not the same act as buying more tickets. If I pray and I take aspirin and my headache goes away, what's the most probable cause for my headache going away? The aspirin or the prayer?
the aspirin.
Correct. Now, if I say a prayer and I don't take aspirin, is the prayer more likely to make my headache go away? And if your answer is yes, which I suspect it is, then just go ahead and say yes because, and then explain how praying makes my headache go away. James ran away. We managed to successfully maneuver James into the recognition that he was about to be exposed even to himself as beyond absurd. And then he was going to end up laughing. Because if you're going to say that, ooh, prayer does this. No. There's a difference. There's the placebo effect. But to say that X increases the likelihood of Y means you're demonstrating a causal relationship between an action and a consequence. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't even have to be one that we could intuit, but it has to be one that's demonstrable or you don't get to claim it. I mean, hey, you know what? Wearing my lucky socks does make me bowl better because it gives me, let's use the phrase, it gives me radical faith within myself. Come on. See, here's the thing. I got a great guest on tonight. I am eager to get somebody who's sincere to defend religion, to defend God, to defend the Bible, to defend morality. And they just don't exist. It's a parade of, I don't, is there some channel out there where all they do is like, let's call in and see how long we can get the atheists to try to take us seriously. Look how stupid they are because they're good people trying to help. We're literally mocking what people actually believe, and they're not figuring it out. Yes, it's called Godwin's law. To some, well, no, Godwin's law is the Nazi one. Poe's law, that it's impossible to parody this, because I guarantee you, James, there's someone out there who sincerely believes that God is consciousness, which is what you started with, even though you said you wouldn't use the term God, even though when you called in, you said that God is consciousness. There are people out there who believe that, hey, God is this abstract thing that gives you radical faith within yourself. There are people out there who think that prayer works. And the ones that think prayer increases your chances of winning the lottery do so because they think there's an actual being who can increase your chances of winning the lottery, can just flat out decide. I mean, the God that I believed in, first of all, wouldn't want me playing the lottery. Lottery was gambling. Doesn't say that in the Bible in any sense that I'm aware of. Justin might know one that can be massaged a little closer to that. But it was what my church taught. And it was because you're essentially gambling. That money should have gone not to a lottery ticket, but either to directly helping the church and witnessing, or to the people in need. And it was a waste to toss it away like that. And my parents were against all the gambling and the lotteries and all that because the government lies. And we're gonna add. I lived in Missouri, and they added riverboat gambling specifically. Was only going to be on riverboats and only on cruises, and the money was going to go to schools. And very quickly, for safety reasons, the riverboats had to be moored permanently, which means they're not cruising. And so they're just operating 24 hours a day. And then they don't even have to be riverboats. They can just be hotels that are somewhat connected to the water, which then, hey, this sounds like a slippery slope. Then they can just be hotels. And as it turns out, the money isn't just going to the schools, and not as much was going to schools as thought. And you know what? Nobody cares anymore. There's just casinos in Missouri. I go to them. I have fun. And I know that if Jesus is real, he's at least mildly irritated that I went and gambled. He's irritated at me for many, many more things, but that's okay because I don't like him. All right.
Jesus didn't seem to have much care for money. His ideal was be my faithful robot and God will take care of the rest. If you lose all your money, it's fine. Don't even worry about what you eat or you drink. What, are you more valuable than the sparrow? And yet not one falls to the ground apart from the Lord. And it's interesting, though, because in the same passage, we're told not to worry about what we'll eat, but 3 million children die a year of starvation. It's hard for me to believe that Jesus' promise could be coming true right now.
Yeah. Hey, don't worry about it. God will take care of you. Really? Maybe we just paraphrase stuff too much and it meant God will take care of you. But we got another caller on the line, and okay, let's see how this goes. Teddy's calling from Pennsylvania. Teddy's pronouns are he, him, and Teddy says he's glad that Trump made it as president. Hey, Teddy, should we also be glad that Trump's president?
That's a tough question. I'll give you the simple answer. It's the lesser of two evils. However, the main reason I'm calling is simple. Justin, you know me. I go by It's Just Me on your channel. I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor, and Justin knows me quite well. And Justin has helped me become an atheist. He's helped me deconstruct. And all I did was posted something about, I'm glad that Harris didn't win. So I guess
Why?
I know I'm going to see all kinds of mean things.
I'd love to know, Teddy, between a Harris administration and a Trump administration, why do you think that Trump is the lesser of two evils? Do you have more legal protection under Trump than you had under Harris?
Explain legal protection.
Due process. Like, so there are people right now who are being gathered up, deported without any demonstration that they are who the people claim they are. And in many cases, we've shown that they're not. There are people outside the United States, for example, fishermen who happen to perhaps some cases also deal drugs that are being killed in boats in Venezuela.
Correct.
The Supreme Court and others are basically giving carte blanche to the president. So it seems to me that we clearly do not have the same due process under Trump that we had under Biden, and that would have probably continued under Harris. So what's better?
You're going to hate my answer, but I'm going to be honest with you.
I already hate the fact that instead of giving the answer, you decided to start with "I'd hate your answer," but I'm going to forgive that.
Okay. Borders, language, culture. That's what makes a country.
Okay.
Our country
Borders,
before-
hang on. Borders, language, and culture. And so you think that making English the national language was a good thing?
I never said that.
No, I'm just asking. I didn't say you said it. You said borders, language, and culture. And the only thing that I can think that Trump did on language was either making English the national language or scrubbing everything that they want to call DEI or woke from every government website, and scrubbing facts and information about science from government websites. So is it one of those two where we've improved on language, or something else?
I'm not worried about that.
I'm sorry,
Look,
but the question I asked Teddy, I didn't ask if you were worried about that. I'm asking, where is the improvement on language?
I speak two languages.
I'm sorry, Teddy. I didn't ask anything at all about how many languages you speak at all. I asked, where is the improvement from the Trump administration on language? You're saying that there were three pillars that you were that you viewed as important to a society. One of them was language. I just decided randomly to start there. So I'm asking you, what is the Trump administration improvement on language?
I don't know.
Okay, fine. So we'll set that one aside. What is the Trump administration improvement on borders?
Better than it was when Harris and Biden were in there, because the borders were wide open. We had thousands on thousands of illegals coming into this country, and it was destroying our country. It was all
How
about
was it destroying our country? Since we've deported a whole bunch of people, I'm sorry, I was still talking. Since we've deported a whole bunch of people, including people who were here not lawfully, and some people here who were here lawfully as well, we have reduced the workforce, reduced the purchasing force, and the economy is crashing. And the people who've been deported this happened to them without due process of law. How is that a better world if you could be deported tomorrow and have no ability to fight it if they wanted to?
The reason I was told to call in was because the moderators...
I'm sorry, Teddy. I'm sorry, Teddy. I didn't ask you why you were told to call in. I'm asking you questions about what you said. You called in to say that you're happy Trump's president. You gave your reasons. I'm now asking you about those reasons. You've already failed one of your first three. I'm asking you about the border one now. How is it better to just get rid of some people that some people don't like if there's no due process?
Your words are incorrect, sir.
No, my words are no, sir. My words are completely correct, and so we're just going to count that as another failure. So the third prong of your healthy society that you wanted was a nebulous idea after language and borders of, let's see, what did you call it? Culture?
Yes.
Do you mean white culture?
No.
What culture are
No,
you
I'm not
talking
gonna-
about? Because
When
I'm
people
I'm
say
a,
they're
because
not
I'm a,
a-
because I don't know. See, I want to know what culture you're talking about because I'm an 8-year veteran of the military, and I buy into the notion that America is a melting pot, and so a melting pot and a variety of cultures, and there's a blending going on, everything else. So, what culture is it that we're protecting with Trump that wasn't protected under Biden or wouldn't have been protected under Harris?
No matter what I say, Matt, I'm going to look like a fool.
Yes, you are, Teddy, because you are a fool. But the funny thing is that all I did was ask you to give an example of the very thing that you said was going to be better. You've now failed 2 out of the 3. Here's your third chance to say, here is the aspect of culture that is being protected under Trump that wouldn't have been protected under Biden Harris. All you got to do is give me an example. Can you do that?
I never said that.
I'm sorry. All you've got to do is give me an example of an aspect of culture that is protected under Trump that would not have been protected under Harris. Can you do that?
No, I cannot.
Okay. So just listen. So just listen. When I asked you, good, thank you. When I asked you, why was Trump the lesser of 2 evils? You listed 3 things. I then asked you about those 3 things and asked you to give demonstrations that those things are better protected under Trump than they would have been under Harris. And you have absolutely failed on all 3 prongs to even make an attempt, even a half-assed attempt, to show how they're better under Trump. And yet for each one of them, I can give examples of how these things are worse under Trump. Do you have an example of anything that is in fact better under Trump?
No, I do not, and I'm quite sure that.
No. You don't get to go on after that. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, and that's when you get to go on. See, I gave you opportunities to talk about stuff. So if you're now admitting that you have no examples of anything that is better under Trump, what's your justification for claiming Trump is the better, of the lesser of 2 evils?
Our economy's doing better.
No, it's not.
The border's been closed.
No, it hasn't.
And how many people are coming across the border versus when Biden administration was in?
We don't know. We don't know because everything is now done in shadows with masked dudes, and the government is actively scrubbing and hiding information and firing the people who put out the real information about jobs, who put out the real information. How many legal residents or citizens are being deported in this mess of getting rid of everybody? Lots of them. And we've seen it story over and over again. Meanwhile, we've already dealt with borders, Teddy. You failed to defend them. You don't get to bring them up as a success. You don't get to pretend that things are better when you did not defend that they're better. So where's the example, Teddy?
Sorry, I didn't have the right answer for you, Matt.
Oh, no. You don't have the right answer for anyone at all. You don't have a right answer. You're making assertions, and when challenged on them, you're just caving. Go ahead, Justin.
Teddy, I think what you're discovering right now is there's a difference between like a right-wing way of thinking and a left-wing way of thinking. So, for example, right-wingers are, I'm assuming you're one of them, really get latched onto ideas, and then they're told that, well, this is what I'm going to do as president. And you're like, yeah, I like that idea. I want that, right? Whereas Matt and we want to know about the data. The idea is kind of useless to us because what we want to know is whatever the idea is it even coming true? Is it even happening, right? So if we look at the border crossings and the apprehensions and the deportations, no administration ever has deported more than the Biden administration. So we sent more people back over that border than anybody else in history, and it didn't do anything to improve our economy because our economy is not really that affected by illegal immigration. In fact, most of the people who come over and end up as illegal immigrants come over legally with a 6-month visa, and then they just overstay it. They're not people that are like peddling drugs across the border. They're not people trying to like swim across rivers and sneak in. Most illegal immigrants come in legally and they just don't go back home, right? But the reality is that, so I've worked in manufacturing almost my entire life. I've met a lot of illegal aliens, a ton of them, more than I can count. And you know what? They all fucking pay taxes just like you. In fact, one of them I was personally friends with at a place that I used to work with. When he got his first paycheck, he didn't know why there was so much money coming out of it. And we had to tell him, well, because you have an illegal social security number, and the guy that you got it from has like 4 kids he's paying child support for, and now you're paying child support on top of it. So the reality is, yeah, some of them will come over illegally. Most of them work. And they have a lower incident rate of breaking the law as well. I know you're going to watch the news and you're going to see, oh, here's an illegal immigrant that did a terrible thing. And that's horrible that it happens. But if you just look at the numbers, by the numbers, illegal immigrants do far less crime than native-born Americans. And even like where I live, we have a lot of immigrants that come over legally from Burma and Nepal and places out there. They have a much higher rate of starting local businesses, much higher rate of sending their kids to our local college, much higher rate of being involved in even in voting, depending on the situation. So like the reality is, like, if you actually go look at the numbers, don't get tied up in the ideas. The ideals are useless to you. Your political party has roped you into thinking that I need to buy into these ideas and vote for these ideas, when what you should be voting for are actual real outcomes. The outcomes that you're feeling in the real world. Because if all you're ever doing is just looking at the idea and then saying, how do I feel? Well, you're not getting real data. You're getting feelings. Your opinion on who's in office is just a big, trust me, bro, I feel good. Therefore, the idea must be working. But as soon as you drill into those numbers, it's going to fall apart, buddy.
Can I talk now, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Would like to apologize to Matt and Justin and all of the people in here saying all these horrible things about me. The only reason I called in was because the moderators wouldn't let me post anything anymore, sir, because I had mentioned about I was happy that Trump had won, that he was the lesser of two evils. So that the people were telling me to call in because they didn't like what I had posted. And Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but Matt, you were doing your first opening monologue talking about the politics that were happening today, and I agreed with what you were saying, but I was just making a simple statement, and people didn't like it. So now
you agreed with me. You agreed with me, and then you said the opposite, and people called you out.
Pardon me, sir?
You're saying you agreed with my opening statement.
I agreed with the things that you were saying because I agree, and I've been paying attention to what's going on in this country today, the United States. I know people from all over the world listening to me, but all I was saying was a simple thing, and this all started because the moderator told me to call in. And
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but Teddy, I don't need you to cry about what the moderators did. It's weird that you can say you agreed with my opening statement, and then you expressed your agreement in some sense by saying you're glad Trump won. Are you glad that we're killing Venezuelans? Are you glad that we have ended abortion? Are you glad that we're denying LGBTQ rights? Are you glad that we've set aside due process? Are you glad that the economy is tanking? Are you glad that the president is a liar and convicted felon? Are you glad that the Epstein files still haven't been released? What exactly is it that you're glad about?
I'd be glad if the moderators would let me at least post things again.
No. I'm sorry, Teddy. I get this. Maybe this is just too confusing for you. Maybe I'll just have to let you go. But when you say you agree with me, and then you say you're glad Trump became president, and I ask you, what are you glad about? You don't. Why on earth would you say that you're glad? You would be glad if the moderators would let you say stuff. I'm asking you, what are you glad about when you say I'm glad Trump became president? Why?
All I said, Matt, was I was happy that Trump had won.
Eddie, I didn't ask you what you said. I asked you, why are you happy that Trump won?
Because I believe that he is the lesser of two evils.
And okay, never mind, Teddy, you are not worth my time to talk to. We've been down this road already. Repeating what you said about him being the lesser of two evils, which is something that you refused to or were completely incapable of defending, means that you have now spent 15 minutes and 42 seconds completely wasting our time saying absolutely nothing, defending nothing, and now we've gone a complete circle back to, why are you happy Trump won? Ooh, because he was the lesser of two evils. How was he a lesser of two evils? I don't know. What are things like? Well, this is better. No, it's not. This is better. No, it's not. You haven't done a thing, Teddy. All you've done is whine about the moderators. Go back and think about that. And then when you come up with the reason that you're actually glad, call us back.
Teddy, do you mind if I give you a small piece of advice, my friend?
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Remember when you were deconstructing from your religion and you had to start examining everything in finer detail, ignoring the things that you were told and actually looking at it for yourself and thinking critically about it? I think that was the right process, but you need to apply that to politics now. Don't just listen to what people tell you or get wrapped up in ideas or movements. Go get the Congress app. Congress has an app you can download on your phone, and you can read all the bill summaries that they're voting on today. You can do it right now, right? Drill down into this stuff. Look at the actual data. Look at what is actually in the bills, and then deconstruct your political framework the same way you did your religion.
100%.
Make sense?
Yes, Justin, it does. And I apologize greatly to you and Matt for listening to the moderators who recommended I call in about this.
It's so sad, Teddy, that you couldn't just apologize. You have to apologize for listening to the moderators. No, you shouldn't apologize for listening to the moderators. Listen to the moderators. They're there to keep the channel. What you need to do is, you've been fed some misinformation and you seem to have some difficulty sorting that out and making it make sense. I'm not expecting you to turn, I only supported Kamala Harris because it was the antithesis, or it was the better option than Trump. I have loads of problems with Harris. I have loads of problems with Gavin Newsom. I have loads of problems with I'm not a Democrat. I'm not even a liberal. I'm a lefty. But in any case, when people tell me that Trump is the lesser of two evils, and I watch people dying and having their rights violated and losing their job, and farmers going out of business as we send money to Argentina and they get our sales of our crops, and Trump lies about his poll numbers and lies about his health and lies about the economy and lies about the border it is just a parade of lies. And it is bizarre to me that anybody could look at it and say this is the lesser of two evil. We have a different definition of evil. So maybe, Teddy, instead of trying to dig in on all the politics or anything else, maybe take some time and go, hey, what do I think is more evil about A than B? And then call us back and dig in on that, because we might agree with you. It's entirely possible that you could call in and say, I think this is more evil than that. And Justin and I might go, hell yeah, we agree. But it might also be that we disagree. And then we have something we can actually talk about, but we need something more than just a feeling. Cool. Thanks, Teddy.
Take care, buddy.
Somebody in chat said, let's hope Matt is not a commie. I might be. I'm just not fond of the label. But
I'm a political utilitarian. Like I only care about the policies. That's what I'm here for. And I remember in my early days when I was kind of leaving Republicanism, we were talking about the topic of abortion, and it turned out that Republican policies lead to more abortions, not less. I'm like, holy shit, if you care about abortion, you do not want to be a Republican.
And it was similar with other policies. They led an ideological view that if a man lies with a man, they've committed an abomination and they're deserving of death, to be, hey, we're not going to provide condoms to AIDS-riddled Africa because that would be an implicit encouragement of them to have gay sex. Hey, motherfucker, they're going to be having all kinds of gay sex, whether they have the condoms or not. All you're doing is increasing the death. Similar to it's identical to the position on abstinence-only education. Hey, we're not going to provide condoms to kids. We're going to pretend that kids are just going to be celibate. No, they're not. And that's why Lubbock, Texas has one of the highest had one of the highest teenage pregnancy rates, because they were teaching abstinence only. And they're like, abstinence works. Yes, abstinence works, but abstinence-only education does not work. Well, that's just too bad. See, God wants them to live a holy life and save it for marriage. Well, awesome. I would like for them to be responsible as well. I don't care whether or not they're married. I don't quite have the standards that you and your God do. But I also recognize the facts about reality and where we are losing money, where we are condemning kids to be a part of a failed foster system, where we are robbing teenagers of potential futures. The person who comes up with the cure for your cancer might have gotten knocked up and you denied them an abortion and now they don't get to go to college. Things are a little more complicated than just this wrong, God punish.
And for all the people crying about teenage pregnancy, you got to remember a high rate of teenage pregnancy and abortion happen because priests and pastors are fucking little kids. And sometimes they get pregnant. And the reality is your child is 3 times more likely to get SA'd by a member of the clergy than anywhere else in the United States. The second most place in the United States is 3 times less. After that, 10, 15, 20, 30 times more. So the most dangerous place your kid could be, especially if you think that their purity is a thing that needs to be upheld, is the church. Get them out of there.
We also saw evidence, it took years and years and years to expose this, of churches, religious organizations, the Catholic Church, in a number of different places around the world, basically stealing kids from unwed mothers. Mm-hmm. There are mass graves in some places, and there are kids who were basically just stolen and put into a system. I get that we're not going to agree on morality. I get it. I think we can get closer than we are. Because it might be nice if people said, you know what? Let's not be condescending and do women and children first. Let's not do that. Let's not infantilize children or women. But can we say children first? Can't we at least fucking say children first? Who eats first? Children. Who gets healthcare first? Well, put your own mask on before you put on the mask of your child. Make sure that you are able to take care of your child. But, it's bizarre to say, oh, here's someone. Well, anyway, we have actual callers. I don't need a sermon again. This is one where I'm going to be useless. So Jeff's calling from California. Jeff's an anti-theist that's talking about the plausibility of the Amarna letters indicating the covenant of Hebrews was not with God. I am absolutely useless. So Justin and Jeff, have fun.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Matt, you're still awesome. I'm sorry about your healthcare situation. I feel for you. It's the same with my mother-in-law, so I understand.
Thanks.
Hey, Justin, I've also been listening to you guys for a long time. I have a lot of conversations with other people around, that they don't really believe in the Bible, but then you kind of talk to them and it's like, yeah, actually, you just believe this stuff because you believe it. So I wanted to kind of look at it a more naturalistic way of looking at it. And I was listening to some history, some Mesopotamian history, and they were reading parts of the Amarna letters, particularly from the Canaanite. And when they were using the words, it was, my Lord said to my Lord. And I was like, oh, my God, like a click, like a lightning bolt hit me right then. I was like, that's biblical talk. They're following the same pattern, the same conversational pattern. And I looked it up some more. There's more of them, the throwing the dust at the feet, the dust in the ashes. I fell at your feet 7 times. And that one came up too. Yep. It was just like, whoa, this is the same kind of language that they're using for that. So I've been kind of chasing it down, trying to figure out
with the Hapiru group that is attacking the Canaanites, and the fact that the battles line up in the Bible as well, like the same kind of like locations and sort of similar type stories, like, oh, this guy joined us actually, and then we beat this town, you know what I mean? And like, I'm kind of wondering, is this more plausible as a naturalistic explanation that it kind of explains why God said, quote unquote, to, you know, beat the babies on the rocks and do the things, you know, and kill everything that was there. You know, was it actually a king of some other tribe out there on the outskirts using the Hapiru to attack the Canaanites?
Okay, so there's a lot happening with the Hapiru. So the first thing you need to know is that the Hapiru, we have no reason to believe whatsoever that they're Hebrews. In fact, there's a book you might want to be interested. Let me see. I might have it with me. If not, hit me up on the Discord. I'll make sure I get you a copy of it. But if you look at the tablets from Alalach, King Idrimi gives a little bit of his story about how he rounded up the Hapiru from the Canaanite lands, and then he marched up towards Anatolia and started conquering, Anatolia. You can find them. DJ Weissman published them in the 50s. And you should be able to get a PDF copy of the Alalach tablets. And what you'll discover is that the Hapiru is more of a social construction. It's like an idea people group, like a nomadic people group. They didn't have a homogeneous bloodline or anything like that. So associating the Hapiru with the Hebrews, I think, is problematic. Even though to the naked ear, it might sound similar. I don't think it's quite that easy. And also, it seems that the English Hebrew, if you know, in Hebrew, it's they call their language Evrit, and the so-called, according to tradition, the Hebrew name came from the ancestor Ever, which is very much different than what we say in English, right? So the reality is, while it sounds the same when we use our English rendering against the ancient Akkadian language, it's just not the same people group. We have no reason to believe that. And plus, they pre-existed Abraham. We know that they pre-existed Abraham. So that being said, the Amarna tablets, we've got about 315 tablets from Akhenaten and one of the other pharaohs between the petty kings in Canaan during like the 13th, 14th, 12th century. And what we find is that there was an uprising of nomadic tribes that started to band together in order to take over the land. And you might think that, well, maybe these are Hebrews. Well, we have no reason to believe that the Hebrews even existed at that time. But what we do know is that they rose up from the inside. And this would correlate with what we find in like the works maybe of, what was his name? Israel Finkelstein, and others have a really good archaeological data to suggest that the ancient Israelites were actually internal, not external to the nation. So I don't think it supports a hypothesis of they were Canaanites originally. That seems to be William Devers would probably agree, and a bunch of others. But I don't think we have any data to support the idea that, in fact, there was a group of Semitic people that left Egypt and then conquered everybody in the Promised Land. The Semitic people, the Hyksos, left Egypt in the 1600s, so hundreds of years before the uprising of the nomadic Abiru. And we don't really have a whole lot of record necessarily of that would link the Hyksos to the Hebrews, other than the fact that they spoke a Semitic tongue. So, but that being said, here I'll tell you my viewpoint. My viewpoint is that these were old stories that people kind of knew. Everyone probably knew about the expulsion of the Hyksos. Everybody probably knew about the uprising of the Abiru, because it led in 1170. There was an entire collapse, as the Bronze Age collapse. There was an entire collapse of the Levantine area around this period, and part of it was because of the droughts and uprising of people groups and whatnot. But all that to be said, all of this got mythologized. Hundreds of years later, it got mythologized, and it turned into an ideological story to explain the people that were currently living in the group in Canaan, who had displaced the previously lived Canaanites. We don't have any reason to believe that there's like authentic memories being preserved in whole in the Bible about this time period, but I do believe there is the tiniest mustard seed of historical kernel there. It's just old stuff that probably did happen that got heavily mythologized and changed, just like, Johnny Appleseed or George Washington cutting down the tree, or, or crossing the Rubicon, like all the other mythologized stories. That's basically, I think, what we've got.
I hear you, and I know they use that same narrative basically with Moses' sons, how they were using that to explain, oh, those people to the north that were seafaring, oh, they were this son, they were Son or whichever, and oh, these people, they're this son, and then that's how they ended up splitting them all up.
Yeah.
Okay.
The book you want to look for it looks like this. It's just got a generic cover. And you should be able to find something at a library, typically at a university library. You'll be able to find it, and I think you're gonna like it. You're gonna like it a lot. In fact, it's got a bunch of good laws in it as well. You can compare with the laws of Hammurabi and the laws of Moses to see how they match up. Or you can email me and I'll give you my list.
I'm curious.
Thanks. Sounds great.
The significance of this is because. Just correct me as soon as I'm instantly wrong. The amount of tablets date back to like 14th century BCE. And so if in fact what they were chronicling with the acts of the Habiru were the same, right? And I'm probably saying that wrong, either were the same as the Hebrew, because there are battles that seem to kind of line up. And so the question is this just a coincidence, or is this perhaps a retelling of the story? I'm presuming that biblical scholars would say that if those tablets were the original source, or the oldest source we have for those, wouldn't that mean that we would rely on what they said and perhaps what they said in other areas that would relate to the point where this set of tablets could override things that are in the Bible that, as we know it now?
I would say you're almost on the right track. It's kind of the other side of the story,
Mm-hmm.
It's like how they say Sodom and Gomorrah, everybody was like a sinner, blah, 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 terrible, but we don't have any, proof of that. We just have the one side of the story. This is where I'm kind of trying to see, is this like the other half of the story? The people that were being attacked by the people on the outside.
So that does happen. If you read the inscriptions of Ashurbanipal or Sennacherib's prism, or if you read like Cyrus's, he doesn't have a prism, cylinder, there we go. If you read the Cyrus cylinder, you'll find military accounts that parallel the biblical accounts, and you'll see where they match up. I don't think this is one of those. Those accounts were written when we actually had historical text from the time period. The biblical account post-dates this area of the Bronze Age so far that there's really nothing to compare to. The best you can say is, well, there might have been some historical kernel there somewhere, just like the Epic of Gilgamesh. Could there have been a guy named Gilgamesh at some point? Maybe. Did he rule a people group? Maybe. Did he go to the cedar forest of Lebanon, chop down a tree, and fight with Humbaba? No, the motherfucker did not fight with Humbaba and cut down a cedar tree to defeat the god. So the reality is, like, when we have these really, really old stories, it's hard to know what percentage of them came from actual history, but the older they are, the tinier the percentage gets.
Right, for sure.
So, for example, the first 11 chapters of Genesis, what you'll discover is that most people in Genesis, their names are awfully reminiscent of their role in the story. This is a hallmark of mythology. When you don't know the name of somebody, you just kind of vaguely know a story that's been passed down orally forever. Well, what do you make their names? Well, their name must be, the father of many, of course, because everybody came from this guy, right? And so we see a lot of that in the early stages of Genesis. We see in Exodus. So the stuff that was happening in the Bronze Age in the Bible, we just don't really have. The Bible's not really recording good data, but I do believe it is attempting to report stories that have been passed along for a long time. Some of the oldest are like, the Song of Deborah, when they crossed over the water, the Song of Miriam or Moses. Some of these songs are really old. Like, you probably remember London Bridge is Falling Down. You have no idea what it's about, but you remember it because it's so easy to pass down. So we know some stuff probably was passed down, but by the time we got to the age of the Hebrews, it was so far mythologized. I wouldn't count on most of that even becoming close to real history. Maybe 2, 3, 4%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I really
listen,
appreciate picking your brain, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't read the tablets yet, I suggest reading all 315, and it'll change your life. They're really cool.
Sounds like a plan.
Thanks, Jeff.
Friend.
Thanks so much.
Whoops. It's by the way, all the lines are open. If you have thoughts about gods, about the Bible, about anything tied into it at all, where you can give a case for why we should believe something, or why we should believe that Trump is the lesser of two evils, I save on my phone a kind of. If it weren't for like one medical picture from about 2 years ago, I would be happy to hand anybody my phone and let them go through every picture and screenshot in my entire phone catalog for the last few years. Although some of them are private correspondence. I'll take screenshots of things that I want to get back to, but I also take screenshots of data and graphs and charts. It's like I have that one of monthly payroll growth under Biden and under Trump, where the average was about 165,000 or so for Biden and about 65 or maybe 70,000 for Trump so far. And the number of Trump has had 0 months over the average for the entire time that Biden was in office. And we see similar numbers elsewhere. And so they'll post their wins. Like they created more jobs than anybody anticipated, like last month. But there was also greater overall job loss in that period. So they did do some stuff that makes some jobs. But it's like, oh, the economy's going great. No, I mean, Thanksgiving dinner was more expensive this year than previous year, except that you got to pay less for less in some cases. They shrunk the size of what they were packaging so they could make it look like you were getting the same food for less money, but you were getting less food for less money. It's just as costly. I keep things like that all the time. And then I have loads and loads of pictures of food and of snakes, including like when we went out and did Halloween, we sat out on our driveway and I took pictures of, like, that is one of our Doomerals boas in the actual candy bowl, just sitting there waiting for kids to come up and, oh, would you like a piece of candy? Just go right in there, just past the snake. What we're looking for is someone who thinks that Justin or myself have missed something, or that we're thinking about it wrong. We don't have to dig through these tablets, but we can. We don't have to dig through what the Bible says, but we can. We don't have to dig through anything other than where the point of disagreement is. It would be so nice to say, okay, I think Jesus is divine because I think everything's divine. Okay, cool. Now we can set aside everything related to Christianity and doctrine and everything else because you've just made Jesus equal to everything. Oh, it's all divine. Great. Then what does divine mean to you, and what's the value in it? Because if everything is divine, I mean, to me, that would mean that, a turd is also divine. And if the quality that you're ascribing to something applies equally to fecal matter as it does to your Lord and Savior, that's a bit of a problem. I mean, I'd love to know.
If you can't distinguish between God and feces, we've got a problem with your God.
Yeah, and we see these, people are like, oh, well, this is what we're expecting. This is what we're seeing. And And it's consistent with it. The Bible talks about these end times and this and that. In reality, I think what a lot of people are looking for is the glurge written by apologists, end times. Oh, we've sold 500 books on, the last days. And all of us have our own take on it. And every couple of years, somebody comes along and updates it and says, here's what the end times means now, because it didn't, come true 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or nothing has changed. So we're just always in the end. There will be wars and rumors of wars. Can you name a time in the entirety of the history of the civilized world, and even some of the pre-civilized world, where there weren't wars and rumors of wars? How about talking about the president of peace who claims that he stopped 9 wars that we can't find or learn anything about, and he still hasn't stopped Gaza, he still hasn't stopped Ukraine, he's getting ready to start one in Venezuela, or maybe already has. For the people who are like, oh, no, things would have been just as bad under a different administration. I think that things would have been bad under another administration. I just don't think they would be just as bad. And I don't think that we would be spending as much time focused on basic rights. And also, I get it. I talk about this a lot. And people are going to be like, oh, you talk about this a lot because you're with Arden. And that's true. But also, it's because I'm seeing things. And that is that trans folks represent like less than or around 1% of the population. And yet they are a vastly larger chunk of the proposed problem and the discussion, even down to like Sam Harris and others were blaming them for the loss of the last election, even though Kamala Harris didn't even really mention trans folks. But
yeah,
people talk about it in a dishonest fashion, because if you think about it, if there's 300 billion people on the planet, and trans folks are like 1%, and then what they'll say is, oh, no, I'm fine with people using whatever pronouns and identifying how they want, and they should be able, they should have rights and dignity. I just don't think that they should be in sports. Now, if less than 1% of the less than 1% are even involved in sport, how many, there are 10 trans athletes in the entire NCAA out of potentially hundreds of thousands, millions. There are 10. And yet this is what we focus on. I would think that there would be a better way to do this than by throwing out everybody else's civil rights. I would think that there would be a way to protect the sort of things that you value, even when you're talking about things like women's spaces, without further marginalize and making things worth not just for trans people, but for cis people as well. Because there are way more cis women who, and my apologies for the language, but there are way more cis women who aren't going to pass, especially under the douche bro model of we can always tell, than there are trans women who aren't going to pass. And let's stop talking. I'm sorry to Ben and all my trans man friends. Nobody gives a fuck about trans men. It's not even mentioned. They're only included just so they can look like, no, we're not just taking our homophobia and turning it into transphobia just about the women. We're trying to protect women's spaces, and no. Nobody cares about trans men. And quite frankly, some of them probably like that.
There's been a lot of oppression and violence done under the guise of trying to protect femininity. I mean, even look at during the civil rights era and the pre-civil rights era, how many lynchings were under the guise of having to protect white female purity. You know what I mean? Because when your motivation is utilizing fear to move people for control, people are pretty good at being motivated by fear, which is why the right wing, all their policy positions are be afraid of these people. These people are the problem. Whereas on the left, we actually Not always, but we try to say, okay, here are some policy proposals that we think will be effective in improving your life, rather than saying, these people bad, these people evil, be afraid. And if your politician is telling you that you need to be afraid of something or hate somebody, that tells me that they don't have any actual policies and you don't need to vote for them.
My apologies. Normally, I've been
We might
trying
have
to
a call
ignore chat.
coming.
We do. I'm going to put this call through, but somebody in chat was like, wait, does Matt mean he's with Arden as in a couple? Yes, for 4.5 years. Where the hell have you been? But yes. Elias is calling from New York. Elias is a theist, pronouns are he, him, who says he'll explain why we need God. Hey, Elias, you're on with Justin and Matt.
Hi, hello, how you doing? I'm good. So I just want to say the reason why you need God is because it says in the Bible that if you don't have a God to save you, to, send you to heaven, then you're going to hell. So that's why you need God. You need a God so you don't go to hell.
So we need saved from God, by God.
Yeah.
So like we're standing by the road and there's a beer truck swerving off the road at us. Jesus comes by and pushes us out of the way, and we're supposed to be thankful even though Jesus was the one driving the fucking beer truck as well because he's a Trinity?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, let me try a slightly different way.
Yeah.
You say we need God. Does the fact that we, even if I agreed that we need God, does that mean there is a God?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. I need $1
I
billion.
think you guys believe that as well.
I
believe you guys believe.
I don't know why you're talking. You already said I need $1 million. Does that mean I have $1 million?
No.
Okay. If the Bible says that God is real, is that enough to conclude that God is real?
Well, say what? Huh? I said what, Daddy? Oh, Daddy. I love your voice. Fuck.
Okay.
Say
I'm
what?
going to let you jack off on your own, Elias. Say goodbye. Well, you don't get to say goodbye. I'm not here to... I appreciate you making your kink obvious. And I hope it wasn't like a shame kink, because I'm in a mood where I'm just not going to play. And I'm certainly not going to waste time on that. So, Justin, what a shame. But let's treat this like it was real. Yeah, let's treat this like it was real for just a second. There was a couple other callers, and I'm going to jump over for just a minute. But here's the thing: I would agree that the Bible, although it doesn't say in the simple sense that he does, I would agree that the Bible directly implies and suggests, under most normative views of Christianity and some aspects of Judaism, that human beings are a fallen creation in need of some sort of salvation. And that basically it describes the full Christian Bible, God coming down and taking human form to sacrifice himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he's in charge of. So God can't just forgive us, but he can do some blood magic and then forgive the people that he wants to give. And it's like the little meme where Jesus is standing there knocking at the door, and it's like, hey, let me in. Why? So I can save you. Why? From what I'm going to do if you don't let me in. I mean,
that's right.
You're basically arguing for a tyrant. You know what? If I'm in the water and I'm drowning, I definitely need a life vest or a life jacket. That doesn't mean there is one, and that doesn't mean there's somebody to throw me one. But if I'm in the water because Jesus threw me overboard, and now Jesus is expecting me to pledge allegiance in order to get a life jacket, Jesus is a monster. I mean, that's criminal activity. That is grossly immoral activity. And for the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise God of the universe to set up fallible human beings for obvious failure that he had to know was going to happen, and then hold them responsible for the failure that he set up, I mean, that's a monster. I have greater respect. I have too much respect to think that being actually exists. If there is
It's a preposterous being.
Yeah. It is. I agree. And it's more than a little
It makes sense from a historical perspective. You know, when you're looking at historical religions, most of them had this early agrarian God where he needed our sacrifices so that we sustained him or her, and then we get benefits. We win the war. These crops are going to grow. But those societies kind of died out. The ones that lived on, their religion had to change and morph. And this one particular religion in Christianity is just one religion that was pretty good at adapting and changing their messaging. But I think the most toxic of all the messaging is at the very end with the Jesus stuff, which is, because you're not perfect, I will have to light you on fire for all of eternity and torture you, which is even more horrific than what we find in the Old Testament. I know I complain a lot about the rules in the Old Testament, but at least Yahweh didn't say he's going to light you on fire for eternity. That was a Jesus thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm opposed to physical violence. I'm not, I will stand up in defense of myself and others to the best of my ability, but I'm older and weaker, and let's be honest, I've been in one fight when I was in 8th grade, and it lasted about 2 minutes. And other than that, I don't care to be involved in a fight. But I'm not just going to, let somebody push you around or whatever else. If you saw someone physically harming a little child, I would say that some amount of physical violence is immediately justified to get them to stop doing that, to stop, beating up. So now you've got a situation where it's justified to beat on someone in order to stop them from hurting someone else. And let's say that me and the person that I beat up go before the judge. And the judge says, Matt, you beat up on a good person, you're going to jail. And the person you beat up on was beating up on a bad kid, and now they're going to go free. That's what God does. That's what God does. It's not about what's moral or what's justified. It is about who has a protected status and who doesn't. It is not at all about morality. It is about obedience. God is like Trump, in that loyalty is what's rewarded and not virtue. But we got some calls, so let's
100%.
see. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
So 100%, and people forget God can do anything he wants to. In fact, he moves people. He changes their heart all the time. In fact, in Joshua chapter 11 says that he hardened the hearts of these Canaanite tribes to bring them out to war against the Israelites. So he could easily just soften somebody's heart and prevent all the violence and bloodshed from the beginning.
And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, or allowed Pharaoh's heart to be hardened, depending on which particular trial you're looking into. But we got some theist callers lining up, and I want to get back in there in just a minute. But Matt is an atheist who's calling to ask a question. So Matt, you're on with Justin and Matt, so have at it.
Hello?
Hi.
Who am I talking to? Is there like a delay between my TV and me talking to you?
Yes, turn your TV off, listen to your phone. You're talking to Matt and Justin.
Oh.
What's up?
Okay, I just want, my main thing is, you guys don't seem too concerned about that stupid MSNP 7 that Trump signed, where he basically thinks that he can declare anybody who's anti-Christian or anti-American terrorist. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is my father was a preacher for 30 years. He was a
I have no idea what
Baptist
you're talking
preacher
about.
What?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't know about that? It was MSNP 7. Well, anyways, if you don't know about it, that's weird. But anyways, my father was a preacher, and he deconstructed.
I know what NSMP7, or so it's NSPM7, not MSNP, and it's about labeling. It's about labeling people as domestic terrorists and stuff like that. Of course, I'm worried about it. I've spoken about it many times. I spoke about it when it actually happened, when it went live, that by virtue of me even supporting trans rights at all, I am labeled a violent extremist by both the Heritage Foundation and potentially by my government. Yes, we've spoken about it before.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well, I want to get this out of the way is I've never really been a devout. I was baptized a Mormon about 20 years ago. Before that, my dad was a preacher, and we were raised in the church. And one day he was preaching, and he'd been preaching for 20 years, and it dawned on him that he couldn't prove anything he was saying. So we moved from Indiana to Arizona, and he really didn't even deconstruct. Once he left the environment, everything just faded away. But anyways, he's part of a group. I guess they're called apostates, but they meet on Zoom once a month. There's like 30 or 40 of them. Now, 20 of them have already fled to Canada because they're scared they're going to get arrested.
Okay, I'm sorry I lost interest a while ago. I'm going to move on. It's just easier for me. Trust me. I don't need your life story or a book report or to hear about your dad's group or that you just learned what the word apostate means. It's not going to be good for the show or me today. Call us back another time, Matt. But yes, we're aware that the administration is looking at some of us and trying to label us as violent extremists and terrorists and stuff. So here we go. But there are some callers here, including Ed is calling from Canada. Ed is a theist, pronouns are him, who says biblical morality is defensible. So Ed, welcome to the show. You're on with Justin and Matt.
Hi guys. Nice to talk to you. How you doing?
Good.
I'm
how you
okay.
Doing?
Cool. Yeah. So in terms of the defensibility of biblical morality, I think that there are certainly challenges to it, and I bet you we're going to get into them today. And in terms of that, I think in order for it to be defensible, you have to kind of make a couple of sort of base assumptions first. And the first one is that God is moral and that He is. And that He is good, like that God is good, right? That God intends to do the good.
Give us, before you do that, give us the argument for how you know God is good.
Well, I don't.
So
I don't know that.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the thing is that in order to defend biblical morality.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We have no reason to think that a God exists, but just for the sake of all this, we'll just go ahead and kind of grant that we'll skip that. But you're assuming that God is moral, and you're saying that is the necessary. I'm sorry. Can I finish my thought? You're assuming that
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But you did. You're assuming that God is moral. And you're doing that as a justification to defend the morality in the Bible. Do you believe that the Bible is inspired by God? That's a yes or no. Ed? Hello, Ed? Oh, you're on the web thing, so your phone might have fallen asleep. So you need to tap your phone to wake it up and then tap the browser to...
Oh, is that better?
Yes, now I can hear you. So do you believe that God inspired the Bible?
Oh, yes.
Does the Bible have errors?
Yes.
How do we tell which parts are errors and which part aren't?
I don't think that we can be sure. I think it's going to have to be some guesswork. Maybe you could use logic and reason. But, I mean, to an extent, you're going to have to pick and choose. And I think we all kind of do.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem for me. is, first of all, I have no reason to think that there is a God. I have no reason to think that God inspired the Bible. I have no reason to think that God has any sort, is in fact moral or has any sort of moral primacy. But what you're saying is you're going to assume that God is moral and that God inspired the Bible, but that you can't tell which parts of the Bible God inspired or not. So it's pointless for you to assume that God is moral. You could assume that God is immoral, and it still wouldn't help you at all to know which parts of the Bible are moral or not. So if the Bible makes a moral claim,
I don't think that's quite right.
Well, that's why I'm still talking. If in fact the Bible, God is, what difference does it make if God inspired the Bible if you don't have a way to tell which of the things in the Bible were inspired by God?
Well, just because something isn't perfectly useful doesn't mean that it is completely not useful. That's kind of like saying, unless we could get rid of all of the drugs.
No, Ed. That's not even remotely an answer to my question. I'm asking if you can you tell which parts of the Bible were inspired by God and which ones weren't?
Not with any kind of certainty. I think it's always going to be. I think you can apply logic and reason.
When I ask a yes or no question, that's all I need from you, because you've already failed at the simple part. So I need to get these yeses, and then I will let you expand. I'm trying to show you that the thing you disagree.
Sorry, my browser kicked off again. I just need to repeat
Just stop talking. Just stop talking. I'm trying to show you that the thing you disagreed with is a logical necessity from what you've said. If God inspired, thank you. If God inspired Bible passage A, and God inspired Bible passage B, and you acknowledge that we have no way of telling whether it is the case that God inspired A or that God inspired B, then how could it ever be relevant or possible to say that God inspired either?
I'm not sure. I'm having trouble. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I can answer that question. I'd have to ask for more information. I don't want to make you angry, Matt.
I'm sorry, Ed. I'm sorry,
so
Ed.
I'm
sorry, Ed. I'm going to mute you because I don't believe you, and I don't care whether or not you're trying to make me angry. It's a straightforward question. There's no more information needed from me. Here is a passage. If a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman, they're committing an abomination and deserving of death. And here's another passage. If men are struggling and she touches him in the stones, we're going to cut her hand off. Those are two passages. If you have no way of saying which one is inspired by God, how could you ever show that either of them are? Because the possibility is that one, both, or neither are inspired by God. If you have no method to show which are inspired, then you don't get to claim that any of them in fact are, or that you have any good reason for them to be. And also, if you don't just assume that God is morally correct, you knowing that God inspired one, both, or one or both of them still doesn't tell you anything about morality. So how is it at all relevant to say that you think God inspired passages in the Bible, but you have no way of identifying which passages God inspired? That's the question. How is it relevant to say God inspired passages if you have no way of showing which ones were inspired?
Well, I can't. Okay. You said that there's no way of telling, and I never said that there's no way of telling.
No, sir. I'm going to take you off mute. Listen very carefully. I'm going to take you off mute. Just listen very carefully. It's a really simple question. Ed, what is your method for identifying which passages were in fact inspired by God?
Now that's a good question.
It's the fucking question I asked 5 minutes ago.
It wasn't, but that's okay. You're asking it now. That's what matters.
You're so full of shit.
Yeah, he's trolling. He's laughing. He's giggling. He's having a good time.
Yeah, we're putting you back in the queue, and we'll see how long you sit on the queue. If you sit on the queue until all the other callers who were sincere and not just trying to troll for effect, maybe I'll let you continue and try to prove that you're not a piece of shit. But
Ed, that was important. He really cut down to the epistemology of your system, because you can't talk about biblical morals because you don't know what biblical morals are. You don't know what parts of the Bible are actually inspired. So there's no discussion to even be had until you can point to a passage and say, this passage came from God, and this is how I know it came from God.
they said, therefore, amongst themselves, let us not rend it, but cast lots for it, whose it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which saith, they parted my raiments among them, and for my vestures they did cast lots. It's my new therapy thing. I'm just going to pick a random Bible verse and read it for
Psalm
funsies.
22, was it not?
No, it's John 19:24.
It's quoting
it's,
Psalm 20.
it's the psalm that they're, yes, this is the attempt to fulfill this. And so the thing is, was that passage inspired by God? So even if we assume that there is a God and that God can inspire passages and that perhaps a God did inspire passages, there are still a couple of possibilities. Either God inspired that passage or God did not inspire that passage. That issue is separate from whether or not that passage is true. And it is also a separate issue from whether or not that passage advocates for anything good or something immoral or immoral. All of those are different issues. We were willing, for the sake of argument, to grant your ridiculous, unwarranted assumption, not only that there is a God, but that God is moral. Because even if I grant you that there is a God and God is moral, if you have no way of showing me what things God has said, you have no way of saying God thinks this is moral. I can grant you the biggest things. God exists and God is moral. And until you can demonstrate how you know any passage or instruction at all, in fact, comes from God, it does not matter if a God exists or if a God is moral, because you can't show that it said this. This was the point. It's basic logic. And this is why I asked what the method was. And this is why I had to walk you like a petulant, trolling child all the way around to the same question I had already asked. So now you get to sit on hold for a while, think about it, come up with a better answer, so that if you're still around and I take you off of hold and give you a chance, you do a better job so that everybody here no longer thinks that you are just here to troll. Here we go. This is going to be bad.
God is certainly not sending his best tonight.
No.
Actually, this might be his best. That's the scary thing.
So yeah, it could be. Rainwood is a theist. Pronouns are he, needs to apologize to me and has 2 serious questions about evolution. Okay, Rainwood, welcome back.
Hi, Matt. I haven't rested easy since I made a jackass of myself the other day. So I just wanted to say I quoted Ecclesiastes where it says, eternity's been written in the hearts of all men. You mentioned a friend that was very sick, and I just want to deeply apologize for my words.
Cool. Forgiven. Let's move on. Let's move on to something relevant.
Thank you, sir. I always had a question, and maybe you could help me with it. I know people talk a lot about evolution of animals, but no one really talks too much about the evolution of like eggplant, tomatoes, oranges. Can you help me with that to understand how that evolved?
Nope. Because I'm not a biologist, but I can say that while Forrest and Erica both deal primarily with animals, and Erica more with primates, I guarantee you they have a strong enough understanding of the basics of evolution to talk through plant stuff. They just might not have specific plant knowledge. But you the basic nutshell is that we go from self-replicating molecules to different categories of life, and we are related to plants, just like we're related to fish. It's just a different branch on the tree of life. And so you are more closely related to chimpanzees and bonobos and the various great apes than you are to a banana. And yet you might be more closely related to a banana than you are to, you know, some random bacteria. I probably picked bad examples, and all the biologists are gonna rip into me. But what's your concern about plants as it relates to this?
You know, it just seems like, you know, Thanksgiving was here and Christmas is coming around and everyone's enjoying nuts and grapes and all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and it's almost like it was designed for us. That's my issue. Like, not an issue, but
Didn't they also enjoy turkey?
How did it get that way? You know what I mean? How did it get that way to be like somebody wants to have mashed potatoes, someone wants sweet potatoes? You know, I'm just curious.
So didn't they also enjoy turkey?
Yes, sir.
Does that mean turkey was created for us?
Well, yes, they were. Otherwise, we wouldn't have them, right? That's a good question.
No, I see no reason to think that turkey or anything else. So here's the thing. Life exists by killing other life. I have 19 species of snakes and 9 species of lizards. And amongst my 9 species of lizards, I have some that are completely vegetarian, things like my ornate Uromastyx. It eats kale and, mustard greens, collard greens. It eats lentils, all kinds of stuff. Those are all things that I could eat too. So was the lentil made for the ornate Uromastyx or for me?
Good point. Understood.
Maybe it was made for both of us, but you know what else it was made for? The mold and bacteria that consume those things as well. Everything lives off of the death of something else. You're either going to live off the death of that turkey or the death of that mashed potato or both. And so if you imagine a system where there's a variety of living things struggling for resources, some of those resources are them consuming other living things. I'm gonna eat that cell right there and suck up all of the goodies in that cell because that's the same thing I use. Now, as the cells get more complicated, you get multicellular organisms. It's not just I'm going to eat that thing to get what's in that cells. It's the machinery within those things that I mean that metaphorically, the functions of those cells that produce different vitamins, minerals, etc., in providing fuel for our body. Your body uses a chemical process to break down other living matter. There are animals that can and plants that can only break down. I shouldn't have said and plants. There are animals that can only survive off of plants. There are animals that can survive only off of animals. They're called obligate carnivores. And then there are some that can survive off of a mix. What they can survive off of is a matter of the evolutionary process that said, hey, these animals have the ability to adapt to eat 12 items instead of 2. So their likelihood of continuing and spreading on their genes is greater than the one that can only find 2 things to eat. And so the animals that we have and the plants that we have that are especially picky, that have very niche diets, like I keep 19 species of snakes, but I don't keep any that only eat snails, and I don't keep any that only eat fish, and I don't keep any that only eat frogs, and I don't keep any that only eat snakes. There are snakes that fit in those categories where they pretty much only eat those specific things, and they're much more difficult to keep in captivity. Most of my snakes can eat rodents, birds, frogs, etc. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a personal question, Matt? What got you attracted to snakes? Is it a long story or something simple that you could share?
I have no
Because
idea.
it's
I
unusual.
like animals. I wasn't allowed to have snakes growing up, so of course I always wanted them. So I suppose a little bit of rebellion. I like the fact that people are terrified of them and don't understand them, and their fear, and it just comes from ignorance. These are beautiful. They're not hug me friendly, but they are not aggressive. They have no interest in killing you or eating you, or they just want to be largely left alone. And
Right.
I find that the fear of them is generally irrational. And so I'm working a reptile expo this weekend. I will spend most of the weekend teaching people about reptiles and helping them get an appreciation for them. And usually at these, if there's a kid that shows up and it's like their first snake and they've saved up, I will usually just give them a snake if they promise to buy the things like a thermostat and other things that ensure that it's going to be taken care of. I like to learn stuff, and I like to teach stuff. And I think snakes and other reptiles are underappreciated. Call them the underdogs.
Isn't animals better than people sometimes? That's how I feel sometimes. Like a lion will take down a...
I would take any snake over Trump, so yeah.
That's funny. But I was going to say a lion will take down a zebra, but he doesn't want to kill all the zebras. But mankind wants to wipe out villages and stuff, you know? But, yeah, thank you for answering that couple of questions for me. And I always get enlightened by your words, and even when you sometimes lose it a little bit, you're always right. People listen back later and say, it was me that was screwed up, not Matt.
It's all right.
I just wanted to really call to apologize to you. The last 2 days I haven't been myself. I had to call you up, Matt.
Thank you so much. And also, don't forget, you can call into Skeptalk on Mondays, and frequently there are biologists there and other scientists who know more about that. But I understand how you and anybody else can look at it and go, ooh, this world seems to fit us. It looks like maybe it was designed for us. This is the anthropic principle that is talked about by many, but I would recommend that you go look up the quote from Douglas Adams on the anthropic principle, because it's about as good as I think anybody could do.
Well, you brought up a good point, too, how other animals eat off it. It's not just for us, it's for them, too.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point. Thank you, Matt. And I forgot your co-host name. He's always very educational, too.
I'm quite memorable.
Yeah. I forgot.
Thank you. You'll remember it soon, because Justin's the best. So thanks, Rain.
All
right.
Cheers, buddy.
How you feeling? You wanna let's do it.
I mean, let's dig into it. I don't have a bedtime. No curfew.
Hey Ed, you're
hey
back
guys,
now.
How you doing? Oh,
Cool.
Thank you for bringing me back.
What's your mechanism for determining what things God has or hasn't said?
I don't have a great one. I don't really even think that I'm going to argue for one. I think that because, especially since...
Then goodbye.
It's over.
Yeah.
You have no foundation, buddy. It's gone.
Daddy don't play.
Oh, boy.
If I give you a second chance after that bullshit and I let you know that the only thing we're going to be concerned about is that you need to provide a mechanism to support the thing that you're claiming, and you acknowledge that you can't, yeah, we're done. Come up with something else to call back another time. I just did a video.
His worldview is basically an admission that he doesn't like the morals of the Bible, which is why he has to pick and choose which ones he's keeping.
Yeah. Hey, I don't like what the Bible says about this, but I like what the Bible says about that. Great. Congratulations. You are acknowledging you are the source of your moral opinions. You know what? So am I in some regard. I'm the source of what I'm going to value. That can also change, by the way, because I did a lecture. You can go find it online called The Superiority of Secular Morality. It is a step-by-step walkthrough of how you can begin with very simple assumptions, that may not be true or good, and then you evaluate the consequences of living according to those assumptions to see if that makes a better world or a worse world or the same world. This is how I think civilizations have built moralities for the entire history of humanity. They just credit a God. And when they find the things that they think work, and by the way, some of these things work great within small communities, but they don't scale. And so ostracizing someone in an agrarian culture where they're now, you no longer have access to the farm and the food. You no longer have access to the resources. You no longer have access to the protection of the group. It's like when you're living as an outlaw, you are outside the protection of the law. When you've been ostracized from your community, life's a struggle. That gets people to go along. And there are certain rules that you need when there are different people sharing space. I need no rules in this house. No, there is, if I was the only mind left in the universe, there would be no such thing as morality, because I contend that there's nothing I could do that could possibly be immoral, including terminating my own existence. Because morality exists in the interaction between thinking people, thinking agents, and in how the consequences of our actions impact our lives and the lives of those around us. So if I'm the last thinking person, there's no such thing as morality. Meanwhile, if I'm here at my house, which I am, and I have a cat, so and Arden cares about the cat, so I have some responsibility to the cat and all the other animals that we have as well. But if I yell and say the most awful, bizarre, bigoted, hateful, racist things and scream them at the top of my lungs here in my own house when nobody's around, I don't see how that could be immoral. I can see how it could be harmful. I could see how it could be damaging to my psyche and maybe even encourage me to be more awful when I'm around other people as well. And so some of us have actually put a little bit of thought, maybe not enough, into morality. But if you're going to say that you're going to defend the Bible's morality, and it's because there's a God who's good, you need to be able to show, I'll just skip past that there is a God. You need to be able to show, and I'll skip past that God is good. You need to be able to show which passages God actually encouraged. Because if we assume God is good, but you can't tell me which passages he inspired, then it could be the case that slavery is in fact moral or immoral because the Bible advocates for it. How do you tell? And if your ultimate barometer is just, I go with what I feel, cool, me too. And I feel that caring about what the Bible says is a complete waste of my and everybody else's time. Because there's no lesson I can learn from the Bible that is true and good that I can't learn elsewhere. And also that it would be sufficient to learn from the Bible. There's nothing the Bible teaches that wouldn't need independent confirmation from outside the Bible. It's not true and good just because it's in the Bible. All right. Well, we lost another caller. Maybe I answered their question. Maybe I should talk less.
Seems like we scared off most of the Christians. We got one or two generic theists. No, we had a quasi-Christian. That's it. Just one.
Yeah. I tell you what, we're going to take this call here. I've already missed talking to the call screener. I don't know. Our line's still open right now.
No, they're not.
Okay, lines are not open, which means Aaron's going to be the final call, and we're going to go on to super chats, and we're going to call it early.
Oh, sweet.
But yes, I do get on my soapbox because it's my show and my soapbox. Hooray! Hey, Aaron has a question. Let's dig in on this. How you doing, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, for starters, I have a foundation in evolutionary biology, and I want to be a future herper. So it's going to be hard to stay on topic, but
We can talk later.
basically
Skip
where
that.
I'm at, yeah. Basically where I'm at is, so I grew up in what's probably the most red state in the country, simply because we don't have a large city that has a large contingency of leftists. So I've always kind of been apologetic of people who vote on the right. Because I've worked on farms, I've lived in a semi-rural area, I've worked construction, but I'm pretty much out of empathy for any of those people now. And so, you know, where I'm at is I don't care what happens to the people who voted for Trump because, you know, they facilitated all these things that are happening. And like I'm just all out of empathy for them, and I feel kind of shitty about that. And I don't know that it's a good thing, because just looking back at history, after the Civil War, we sort of, as a culture, marginalized the entire South, and I feel like that created places for you know, the racists to sort of collect themselves. And then when we tried to get civil rights, that's the echoes of that made it harder for us to advance in civil rights. But at the same time, fuck those racist bastards. So I really don't know. Where I should be, where we should be as a country. I don't know. I'm kind of lost.
Well, I've talked about this a lot, and I've talked a lot, and I just did an interview with Seth Andrews recently where we mentioned this a bit. So I'm more interested in what Justin has to say on this than any of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. I have
Aaron,
heard a lot of what you've said. I've just never heard it directly addressed. So I didn't want to assume, you know, I didn't want to fill in the gaps.
Aaron, I understand that when you're surrounded by people that have really strong opinions, and it makes you think that their opinions are destroying the country and the lives of the people around you, that you might want to like reach your finger out and say, "You motherfucker, look what you're doing." But the bottom line is that's only rarely effective, especially if it's like people you know in your real life. I think that human beings, if you can get them to calm down for a minute. Now, like what I do on my debates is not what I do in real life. That's the first thing. But in real life, when you're surrounded by real people you have to interact with, you have to like see on a daily basis, what you need to do is try to bring the temperature to a point where their head is at least thinking. Like a single logical thought can come into that head, right? And then what you need to do is try to walk them through the data. And sometimes you're going to fail, then someone else will do it, and they're going to fail, and someone else is going to do it. But there's going to be enough people doing it that eventually somebody's going to be taking in new information and doing some processing. Now, are there some people that you're going to come into contact with where you're like, listen, this person's irredeemable, I just want to get them out of my life? That's where I do boundaries. There's a point where you do have to protect yourself from things that will deteriorate your mental health, things that will deteriorate your emotional state. And that's a gray area that you have to decide. Like, I have a really good tolerance for putting up with bullshit. Some people don't. Some people they can't even read the news because it messes their day up, right? So you have to kind of figure out for yourself how much bullshit you're willing to take, and like how much reaching across the aisle you're going to do versus how much you motherfucker you're going to do. Like those are the boundaries you have to determine for yourself. But all I can say is from my experience, I've worked with all kinds of people over my years in church ministry, young people, old people. If you can present them with a good logical piece of information and an argument for something, you're more likely to move them in that direction than if you just shout at them. Now, the reality is what I do on a debate stage is different. I'm here doing something for an audience. People are here to engage in it, almost like watching a boxing match sometimes, right? But I would encourage you not to try to do that in your everyday real life. Don't bring that to work if you can help it.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'm frustrated because in my line of work, I'm all over the state. Most of the people I work for are wealthy, right-leaning people, and like just in the last month, I don't even know how it got brought up, but they just started talking about trans people, and it was the dumbest shit I've ever heard that's constantly repeated, and I'm just not in a place where I can go, hey, I can't do that because it's not, maybe I'm just stuck where I am.
I
Well,
get
first
it.
of all,
It's
I'd
not my
like to say
business.
that.
I can't, yeah.
First of all, I'd like to say that anybody who thinks they have heard the dumbest thing they've ever heard clearly hasn't been listening to the show enough, because that happens here.
I do.
That happens here more than in anybody's personal life. But all joking aside, you're like, I don't care what happens to these people anymore. And I think my problem is that I do. And by that, I mean, I care more about what happens to them than it seems they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because my position is not, hey, I'm going to protect these rights because they help me or someone I love or like. It's, I'm going to protect these rights because they fundamentally help all of us, which is why earlier when we were talking, I was like, okay, do you have stronger, better rights access under Trump than you did or would have had under Harris? Because to me, if I ask that question, that is the question that should ideally convince someone that, oh, this isn't just Matt saying what Matt's about. This is genuinely an issue that impacts all of us. Hey, I have a horse in this race. I have rights in this game. And when somebody suggests that they don't care about that, or that that's not enough, or whatever else, that's really confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So while I care about their lives, I don't care about their opinions. I don't care about their feelings. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's a much more measured way to look at it. I think I'm more emotional about it because I can't openly address most of the stuff that I hear, again, because they're clients, and I have to worry about boss and the business and all that mess.
I can tell you, so I work for myself mostly. I mean, I'm sure Jimmy's listening and Jimmy thinks I work for him, but ha ha ha.
Go fuck yourself.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no. I largely am in control of, my existence. Even like this weekend, I'm working a reptile expo. Arden and I own the business. We answer to ourselves, and we follow the rules at the reptile expos and everything else. It would be very nice if when I was at these expos, I never had to have any sort of political or religious discussion at all. I mean, we're there to look at reptiles and buy reptiles and talk about them and learn about them. And so neither religion nor, political disagreements in partisan ways should come up, but they do. And there are people running around in ridiculous, stupid, hateful MAGA shirts and all that stuff. I would rather nobody feel any need to identify themselves as part of the LGBTQ community. Unfortunately, because if people come out, they are attacked and marginalized. There's a great value in doing it. So this weekend, not only will I be there with a LGBTQ trans pride pin on my shirt the entire weekend. But there will be, it'll be clear that out of all the places at this expo, all of the vendors there, no matter what the other ones think, my booth is a place where you get to be you. My booth is a place where I'm not going to marginalize you, or you don't have to feel unsafe or anything like that. And for the longest time, we didn't do that. We were just like, let's keep these worlds separate. And as things ramped up, we decided it was, even if it cost us business, even if it cost us the entire business, we were going to do that. It turned out to be a great thing. We get people coming up at every show saying, thank you so much for the pen. It makes me feel safer. I appreciate it. It's a little minor gesture. And the people who hate on it are ones like, you don't need to do that. Why do people need to feel safe? Let me find you a safe place. And you don't need to do it. Yes, I don't need to do it. But if I do it, it takes very little effort on my part, and it provides someone a benefit. Well, yeah, but you're just coddling their feelings. Yes, because you're fucking hurting them. Because you're brutalizing them. Because you're telling them they're less than. Because you're making them feel unsafe. Because you are so afraid of this person right here, even though you don't know this is someone who's in the category of people you're afraid of, you're going to marginalize all those other people over there. You're going to punish the other people for this. It's the same thing. You're so mad that there are illegals in here taking our jobs. They're not fucking taking your jobs. And if they are, that's on you. You should have done a better interview. But you're so worried about those that you're willing to deport all the other people who even look like them or seem like them. Kash Patel is going to get fired. And it's partly because he's stupid, but it's also partly because he's brown. The people in Magaland don't have an incentive to keep him there, unless he is sitting there continuing to hide the corruption. And the second he's no longer effective at hiding the corruption, and the second he starts showing that he is bad at this job, which he already has, and he definitely is, he will be out. Pete Hegseth will also probably be out. And he can go back to Fox News and, I don't know, brag about how tiny his penis is because he's a real macho warrior dude. And clearly he's got some baggage in that area. But, who knows? Maybe Pete Hegseth is the world's manliest man. And even someone like me who is evidently gay but denies it should be recognizing just how hot Pete Hegseth is. But every time he opens his mouth or shows up on screen, all I can do is look at him and say, wow, that is absolutely someone who was slighted at some point, who has a massive axe to grind. And if he wasn't the Secretary of War or Defense, he'd be in a paramilitary organization. He would have joined ICE. These are guys that need affirmation, and they need to bully. And so Hegseth gets to bully admirals and generals with lifetime service because they're fat, or because they're willing to follow those ridiculous rules of engagement. It's beyond disgusting to me. And by the way, this has nothing to do with my atheism. At some point when I was a Christian, I probably could have been convinced to go along with some parts of this. But I'm happy to say that I'm pretty confident that at no point when I was a Christian would I have gone along with all of the things that the administration is doing. I would have been, especially not after I joined the military. Fuck Hegseth. That guy needs to be resigned and go to The Hague immediately. But anyway, sorry, Aaron, that's my take.
Empirical evidence. Oh, no, that's fine. I think we have enough empirical evidence that we can state with confidence that he is indeed a sad boy.
See, I'm not young enough, so I'll just say, sad boy, war criminal, 6'7".
War criminal, monster, terrible person. Hey, anyway.
All right. We're going to let you go, Aaron. Thanks so much for calling in.
That is yep. I do think that is a healthier way, focusing on people who need it rather than the people who are inflicting it. and I appreciate that you do that for people. I'd also love you to push the cuddle sketty narrative. So instead of danger noodles, snakes are cuddle sketty. Wrap around you, walk around with them.
I don't like danger noodles or cuddle sketty, but
You
I'm a
don't like-
curmudgeon.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for taking my call. It was good to talk to you. Rock hard for Doug, and all hail the monad. Bye.
Rock hard for Doug, and hard rock for Doug. There's no way Matt just said 6'7". What is this timeline? Of course there is. You know what else? I've watched K-pop Demon Hunters 4 times now, I think. But K-pop Demon Hunters, K-pop. Wow, there's a caller still on. I thought I clicked disconnect.
Oh no, I didn't hear you. Sorry. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Go away. Stop talking. Not only have I watched it several times, but I've said before, it is genuinely a proper, great musical. Like in the themes of the music, where different themes are set up in different songs and replay in different songs, so that when you get to the end or the final song where this is what it sounds like, there's a callback to Golden. Musically right in the middle of it. It is the same thing that you see in great musicals like, Chicago, Phantom of the Opera, Book of Mormon. They're setting up ideals or themes and then playing it out. And it doesn't matter to me that it is a cheesy cliche story. I argue that they actually stole directly from one of my all-time favorite animated rock operas, which is Rock and Rule. That has Cheap Trick. Almost nobody saw it. It was a Canadian
I've never
production.
heard of it.
It's called Rock and Rule. I have it on DVD. It's hard to find. I think you may be able to watch it on YouTube for free. But it has Blondie and Cheap Trick and Lou Reed. And there are some similarities. It's a little bit more of a love story, beats all and everything else, but it's about a rock opera. It's kind of summoning a demon thing. And it's in a futuristic dystopia where the people are like, I hate using this phrase. I don't know what other phrase to use. After the destruction of humans, cats and dogs and other animals gain sentience and take over the world. So we're seeing those things, but yeah. Rock and Rule.
They'd run it better, let's be fair.
Well, if you watch Rock and Rule, I'm not sure that they're running it better, but in any case, if you haven't seen it, it's well done. And my name is Mock. Thanks a lot. All right, so we are now on to Super Chats. And unlike most Wednesdays, because most Wednesdays Arden's producing, so everything's happening on my internal network and I can just pull it up. This time I don't. So our producer, lovely and talented, I am number ! Well done. Oh, that's from my girl. Hi, baby.
Oh.
Yes, you are number ! You know what other number you are? 6'7".
Oh no. You've done it, guys. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. Good to see you, friend. Says, with MAGA, you can make them believe an obvious lie if you get Trump to push it to them. Critical thinking is very lacking in that community, sadly. That seems to be the case.
Yeah, I think there's something important there, but I don't know, even if we identify, I'm so sorry, I've got burpee hiccup from my medicine. Even if we are to identify what the actual problem is, I think we've failed to teach critical thinking to the point where it's going to be difficult to get people to value it. And we've now built a world where, we put people in lab coats in ads for chewing gum for 20 years. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Trident for their patients who chew gum, which made people think that 9 out of 10 dentists recommend that you chew Trident. No, most of them don't recommend that you chew gum, but most of them say, yeah, if you're gonna chew gum, I guess the sugar-free gum is better, and so I guess I'll recommend Trident. But we stuck some people in lab coats. And so we got them to trust misinformation. Then when we find out aspects of that aren't necessarily true, that we're not necessarily doing good, all of a sudden now they don't trust people in lab coats who actually belong in lab coats. And when we rightfully acknowledge you should not trust the scientists, you should trust the science. And so the findings of scientific processes are reviewed and evaluated by real live humans, and the greater their expertise and the greater their critical thinking skills, the more likely it is that the science should be considered reliable, and you should proportion your confidence to the available evidence. And that's what we're doing. When somebody publishes a paper, they're not saying, hey, I think vaccines cause autism, and it just kind of feels that way. I don't know that I got a mechanism to do it. That would not be a scientific paper. I don't know why all of a sudden it's good enough to determine if there's a fucking divine being controlling the universe who cares who you sleep with and knows what you got to do to trick him into saving you from himself. But, why is it the most important questions, your standards of evidence fall through the floor, and then when you're presented with good science, you're like, nope, the earth is flat. My brainworm says that we should, inject ivermectin into us, and I just don't trust the government. We have built a world that distrusts the experts in a good way, but they distrust the expertise in a bad way. And they distrust the system because they distrust other systems. The government is corrupt. They're all bad. It's all equal. And that means science is also corrupt, even though these are just people who genuinely studied a field and learned more about it than other people, learning all the things that the people that came before them did and are trying to expand on it. It's not like Jim Bob down the street from you is likely to invent cold fusion. But if he does, it will still need to be demonstrated through the rigors of the same scientific processes as if it came from MIT. That it's not Jim Bob versus MIT. It is, hey, does this fit with the processes that are the best standards for determining whether or not something is real? And the funny thing is there's a whole bunch of people that are, you guys have probably seen them. I'm not the only one that watches the YouTube videos with Jordan Klepper going out and interviewing, the dumbest people on the planet. And it's not, I don't say that to belittle them. These people have been let down. These people have been let down by the educational system. These people have been let down by the vast access to the internet. These people have been let down by the fact that some of us run around assuming that the average basic understanding is at about this level, when it's very clear that it's actually significantly lower. And so I've tried to scrub some big words, I guess, from the way I do things on occasion. And then I still throw them in on occasion. It's something that Dawkins and I talked about. I think he was right about. People were like, why would you use a word like epistemology? And Dawkins is like, hey, if they don't know what it is, they can go look it up in a dictionary. That'd be good for them. And I agree with him. Problem is, I don't think they will. I think that people have the attention spans and stuff where it's just like, if I don't know what it means and I can't get it from context, I'm going to either give up or I'm going to assume that I correctly understood it from context, and that's going to make me even more confused about the entire subject. Anyway, $14 Canadian from, oh boy, Terracalcify. Terracalcify? Who the hell knows? 8843. Luke 10, 25 through 37. The priest and Levite are not your neighbors. Oh, I'm glad you wrote Levite. Are not your neighbors. So those who don't help you are not your neighbor. Exodus 21:20 is this regarding the treatment of the Hebrew servants? What about chattel slaves? 21:20 is not just about Hebrew slaves, I don't think.
Yeah, I think there's two questions in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so 2120 is when a man strikes a slave, male or female, with a rod or slave, and it dies under its hand. You shall be avenged. That's not exclusively to Hebrews. As a matter of fact, everything after, like the first handful of verses, just applies to slaves in general in Exodus 20 or Exodus 21. The only ones I know that are specifically for Hebrew servants is the requirement to let them go after 7 years.
10 from our
On the other
friend
one-
Duke of Shaska. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't know if you had thoughts on the on who was the neighbor according to Luke.
You know, we've discussed this a little bit in the community, and it's difficult because the original Hebrew term "rea" for neighbor means somebody that's close to you. It could be proximity, it could be blood. It's just somebody near to you. But typically, it didn't mean foreigners. Now, people want to say, well, Jesus is including the foreigners when he gives the parable of the Good Samaritan, but it's not really. We don't know that for sure, because even the Samaritan would have been considered a neighbor by Hebrew terms, just not in the terms of that time period. In that time period, they considered the Samaritans to be like mixed bloods. When the Assyrians deported most of them and then imported their own Assyrian people into the land, they got mixed, and so they wanted to count them as not actually our neighbor because they're mixed. But the reality is, most of them were actually technically their neighbor. So it's not quite as cut and dry as if you do what Jesus says, you're the neighbor. But I mean, it's close. Duke says, praise Doug for Matt's intro lesson being so lengthy and verbose today. Rock hard for Doug. Our verts watching this with their heads tilted 90 degrees. Do not bring the schism to the line. Shaska, don't do this.
Nicely done. By the way, earlier today, you were talking about Levantines. And I need to do this so that you guys understand my brain. Arden's not only going to be mad that I'm doing this, but is going to be nodding like, yes, would you please fucking stop? Puns and amusing dad's joke type stuff have always popped into my head and been almost uncontrollable my entire life, not just since I've been of dad age. And so I've gotten to where I can control myself and I don't have to jump in with the weak ass unfunny joke. But it did take some effort earlier when Justin talked about Levantines for me to say, actually, it's just 11 and 12. The teens don't start till third.
Unless you're a priest, then it doesn't matter.
$10 from Texas Panhandler. People so full of hate for others often hate themselves as well. Christianity teaches them to hate and revile humanity, so it starts to come naturally to them. It's incredibly sad. I would say that the only subtle change I make is that I'm still to this day reluctant to say Christianity teaches people to hate. I think what it was is Christianity freely co-ops the fear and hatred and makes use of it to build a community by othering. So they're not part of us. We should, love the sinner and hate the sin, but they're absolutely reprobates, that we should destroy. And, it's funny too, because why do you care? Isn't this life like dirty rags? Aren't you going to spend eternity in heaven? Will it matter at all what happened here? And if your view about the value of life is that there's this seemingly infinite span of life after the only life we know about's over, why care about this at all? There's nothing here that could, in 20 billion years of praising God, the person who cut you off in traffic cannot possibly matter. I mean, you'd think
Christians
that
are
you'd be a
just
little more
passing
peaceful.
by. That's it. All they got to do is pass by.
Yep, it's a place to wipe your feet.
Reverend Nate, good to see you tonight. Thank you for the $20 Canadian. Says, I got lazed on a live rage today. I'm so going to have a beer because I'm still alive. We're glad you're alive, by the way.
Damn.
Matt will understand. I have to watch The Atheist, End Boss, and The Deacon of Deconstruction later. Stay weird and love rule. Well, we're definitely going to stay weird. At least I'm going to stay weird. Good to hear from you, Reverend. Hope you're okay.
Yeah, congratulations on surviving. Genuinely. $20 from Nightman Cometh. Hey, my very sick mother, is having to continue. It's like, I got all excited, and then I start reading a message. It's like, it's about somebody's sick mother. I'm so sorry. Having to continue to work, and will have to work into her 70s at least because of her health care expenses and debts. I empathize with you, Matt. This country is fundamentally broken. Yes.
I couldn't agree more. $10 from Barbara Barrett. Thank you so much. Says, I am you, and you are me, Kempton Bunton. I feel like I should know this, but I don't.
I don't either, because I was going down the Beatles route of I am he as you are he, and you are me, and we are all together. I am the walrus. $10 from Dante Verona. Hey, man, how you doing? Luke 14:26. Should atheist and skeptic use it, not use it, or how to use it? I kind of wonder if Justin and Matt might differ on this verse. I've heard competing arguments. Well, I'm going to look it up rather than going with what I assume it is. And I was wrong. Luke 14:26 is, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. When you say, well, I guess I don't get to ask Dante, should atheists and skeptics use it? I think that atheists and skeptics should probably not be using it in the way that many of them have, because my take on that passage when I was a Christian was, it was not remotely saying you need to hate these people. That to me, and I am not the linguist or the expert here, but as I learned it, that particular translation doesn't mean you're supposed to hate those people. It is a relativistic thing of God must be first. If any of these things come between you and God, that is an error. That needs to be fixed. And just, kind of a hyperbolic usage of hate, that your love for God is so supreme that everything else might as well be hate, but it's not, it's still love. And that's as close as I can get. Where are you at, Justin?
Yeah, I agree. I don't use that one in debates. Some people have asked me about it. I don't think it's a slam dunk that atheists think it is. In fact, if you read the Talmud and even some Arabic literature, we find similar types of sayings that they're clearly being hyperbolic. And so that's one saying I'm including in the hyperbolic camp of Jesus. But if you read that same story, there's another rendition of the story where they tied in with the man who isn't ready to take up his cross and follow Jesus. He says, I want to bury my dead father. It says, let the dead bury their dead. There's some things that Jesus says where even though it's in a hyperbolic language, it's very cult leader-ish. And it is worth pointing out at least a little bit to be like, listen, a cult leader would want you to put him first in front of everybody. That's a really weird thing to say. That being said, I don't think he's actually suggesting you should be hating anyone. In fact, he said
that's also
if you hate a brother, you're liable to the hellfire.
The hyperbolic stuff, it reminds me, there are a lot of problems in the Bible, and there are scribal errors and all kinds of stuff and whatever else. But like when Jesus says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? From the standpoint of my old Christianity as a Southern Baptist, Jesus did not think that God had forsaken him and could not possibly think that God had forsaken him because Jesus was God. It is a poetic expression of that being the instant where part of the Trinity, and this won't make any fucking sense, I'm absolutely adopting preacher hat, part of the Trinity came as close as it could possibly be to being separated from the rest of the Trinity. And that was the devastating loss that Jesus experienced. Because let's be honest, if the story's true, Jesus didn't give up anything but like part of a weekend. I would give up part of a weekend to solve world hunger, and Jesus didn't even accomplish that. So $20 from Drew Smith, TPA. If everything is divine, then nothing is. I don't know for sure that it works that way, but I would agree that it seems to be the case, that if everything were divine, what would at least be the use of calling something divine?
I'm not really sure, but my understanding is that people who are doing this pantheist type thing where everything is God, everything is divine, they're just not ready to drop the God concept yet. They haven't got into that headspace yet. They'll get there.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah, Drew, thank you for the super chat. Says, the sadness of resorting to wishful thinking. Well, we do it from time to time. Hopefully, less and less of it as we learn.
$10 from Erica Poll, 8842. I've been listening to both of you for years. Thank you so much for the content. You are enlightening the world. Please keep on keeping on. Thank you so much, Eric.
Big W.
It's nice that people have been listening for years since I've been doing it that long.
I know, right? To Teddy and every Trump supporter, the Trump administration is an abysmal failure. Do you really enjoy supporting a failure? Yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn. They always have to learn those lessons by stepping right in it.
It's funny because Al Franken was a comedian and a senator. He was good at both of them. He did something he shouldn't have done in his capacity as a comedian, and years later, it came back to bite him in the ass. And then he did exactly what he should have done, which was own up and take responsibility for it and resign. I would love to have him back, and generally I find him trustworthy and decent on those things. And to me, it's a matter of integrity. It's part of the problem that I have with the Democrats is that to the extent that they're bothering to attempt to fucking play the game at all, those feckless fucking throw in the towel, do nothing, whiny little bitches. To the extent that they're trying to do anything, yeah. To the extent they're trying to do anything at all, they are. Oh, I forgot. There was a point there, and it was going to be good, and you guys were going to like it and benefit from it. I promise. But
it's still spiritually good, even if you don't know it. Believe in your heart. Yeah. $10 from Coffee Town Atheist says, Matt and Justin, I've learned so much from both of you. Thank you guys for opening so many eyes. Love you both. Anyone who still supports Trump has a seriously broken moral foundation. That I would agree with. Even if I was a Republican today, that is one thing you can't do anything about. He has no moral compass.
It is bizarre to me, the things that they're willing to make excuses for. $10 from Infidel. You don't have to read this because $9.99. Yeah, but your handle has 6-7 in it, just in a different order.
And 19 from Daniel the Manual. Thanks for the show. Hope you guys taking care of yourselves. Merry holidays. Well, happy holidays to you, Daniel. And I'm taking care of myself. Matt's kicking it solo for now, but he'll be all back together soon.
Arden's been gone for 16, 17 hours. I'm already fucking miserable. I only know because we had to get up very early to go to the airport, but I'm already miserable, and I'm not looking forward to doing this this weekend by myself. The nice thing is I still got some friends in from out of town, and I'm hoping to get to hang out with them a little bit tomorrow. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed seeing Paul and Shannon on the show. Well, Paul's on here pretty regularly, but seeing Shannon back was big awesome. $10 from Greg Murkowski. Hey, Greg, at the emergency. Oh, my gosh. I keep getting so excited to see these names, and then everybody's got bad news. At the emergency vet with a sick dog, glad to have you guys to keep me occupied as I wait. Well, I hope the pup is A-OK.
Yeah, best of luck. That's hard. And 10 more from Barbara says, I grew up in the U.S., left in 64, and got my core values of empathy, tolerance, due process, and democracy from there. But alas, that U.S. is now as mythical as Narnia. I think you're right, actually.
Yeah. There are, no, I can't. Let me read super chats or I'll cry. $10 from Sam Stone. Hello from down under. Always.
Gay for Justin.
Gay for Justin. Oh, okay. How do you know it's not gay for Jesse Jurdak?
Well, so this trend started in my live stream because someone accused me of turning people gay. And I said, good, I hope they're fucking gay for Justin. And it just stuck.
I'm not gay for Justin or Jesse, but evidently I'm gay, homie. So it's all good. $10 from Wes the Ruckmanite. This is actually yours to read, but I'm doing it. Justin, I'd love to hear you give a 5-minute secular actual history of the Bible, Israel, and Christianity. How it probably all actually happened and how the story developed in your view. I'd like it to be a lot longer than 5 minutes and not in the middle of the super chats.
Well, you'll get your wish eventually, my friend.
It is. I did so there was somebody who made $100 super chat a few weeks ago. Oh wait, here's one right here, which I'll let you read in just a second. But there was somebody who made $100 super chat a few weeks ago asking me to do a secular study of Ecclesiastes. And last week I recorded a 1-hour walkthrough of all 12 chapters, talking about, basically the good, the bad, and the ugly from my standpoint, from my view as a secularist. And I remember when I first became an atheist, there were people like, oh, Ecclesiastes was almost certainly written by a non-believer. And then as I dug in a little deeper and I read, there were people like, oh, no, it wasn't written by a non-believer. It was written by Solomon when he was young and struggling. No, it wasn't written by Solomon when he was young and struggling. It was written by Solomon when he's old. And then I studied and found out that, hey, there's some stranger words in there that place it in a time frame where it could not possibly have been written by Solomon. And there are things in there that don't make sense, like when he talks about how he amassed more wealth than any of the kings of Jerusalem, when Solomon was second? Who are you bragging on, your dad?
Right.
And so it's like, no, it's not that. So we don't know who it is or if it is. And it doesn't matter to me who it is or if it is. It's, hey, what are these messages? And man, I did an entire hour to get through the good, the bad, the whiny ass, listen to the king bullshit. And it was fun. So if you guys wind up watching it, you can go to patreon.com/atheistdebates. That's my Patreon spot there. Please, you can join and you can go to patreon.com/ call line as well. Anyway, I got completely lost there. Justin, this one's yours.
ODA, thank you so much for the $100 super chat. There's some W's for ODA. Says, to Justin, do you think the Kingdom of Israel existed prior to the late Bronze Age collapse? I am not convinced there was ever a united monarchy. I'm in the camp with Israel Finkelstein. Okay, so I do think there was a Kingdom of Israel. I think we probably the best evidence of was the Ugaritic tablets that we discovered in the 1920s. There seems to be some sort of a tribal structure in the area. Now, it's clear from the biblical text that the memory of the tribes differ. Sometimes the tribal names are different than others, and sometimes the tribes show up in kind of the wrong places compared to other texts. But there seems to be some sort of tribal group that identified with the god El, who was the main god in the Ugaritic pantheon. So that people group north of the Judean foothills probably did exist, and they're archaic. I think the Judeans came in later. I believe in the Midianite hypothesis. There probably is a contingent of people who left Egypt. It could have even been slaves that left Egypt. They merged with some people in the land of Midian, and then eventually towards the end of the Bronze Age, they started to infiltrate the foothills of Judea. And then during the Bronze Age collapse, they took over completely. They just filtered in during the Bronze Age collapse. And then they mostly existed as the smaller kingdom in the shadow of the bigger Israel. But when the Assyrians came down, in the 8th century and kicked the ass of the 10 tribes of the north, guess who was left standing? The Judeans, the Benjamin and Judah. They were the ones that were left. And so what did they do? You know, the population of Jerusalem more than doubled during the Assyrian siege because so many Israelites came south into Judea for safety. And so the united front that we see in the Bible seems to be contrived from the post-Assyrian conquest of the real merging of two different people groups. But was there a united monarchy like the way it's described at the beginning of the Iron Age? No, I don't believe that was ever a thing, because even if you read the passages in like Samuel and Kings about the united monarchy, they still speak, like the kings are and the people in charge are still speaking to the people groups as though the North and the South are separate people groups, even when we're in the united monarchy. So I think the united monarchy, it's an overblown concept that's been heavily mythologized hundreds of years after the fact. Much like the homogeny of the Median Empire. The Median Empire in reality was like a loose collection of city-states, you know, with petty kings. But, you know, we think of it as a kingdom. I think United Kingdom kind of ended up like that. That being said, no, I don't believe there's ever a true united monarchy. I do agree with Israel Finkelstein with the natives of Israel coming up from the Canaanite territories, but I think the Judeans were outsiders. I think the Judeans came from the outside, then infiltrated, and then took over, and then they needed to conflate the northern literature and the southern literature together. And I think our best evidence of this is all the northern literature that is duplicated into Ugaritic texts, like the Psalms to Baal, the names of all the deities in the pantheon that shows up in the Hebrew Bible, but they needed to smush them together. And so we get, you know, Elohim as El, who is now conflated in Exodus chapter 6 as Yahweh, even though they were originally two separate deities. But that's a long answer to a short question. We appreciate the question in the super chat, though.
So two quick things. First, anyone who saw me during Justin's explanation nod along. I was not offering my agreement because, well, I've read Finkelstein. I don't know enough to have an opinion. I was nodding along in the, hey, I'm learning something, and I, you know, but, and I guess it's instinctive, but I don't want anybody to think that like, yes, I'm agreeing, and I think that Justin has nailed it, because I that is outside of my field. But what was funny is, back to this again, in my brain, as soon as he starts talking about Judea, my brain goes to the Judean People's Front, the People's Front of Judea from Monty Python. And literally, as my head was doing that, you said the words United Front as my brain was doing Judean People's Front. And I was like, woo, I missed one in the movie.
We've cool. Now merged with Christ consciousness.
It is amazing. All right, $10 from Ali Ashana Silver Bow, who probably has a pun for me. I just got an entry-level job at a place people are dying to get into. What's more, I have thousands of people beneath me. However, working at a graveyard isn't for everyone. True.
Well done.
I remember I had a teacher at school my freshman year, I think, who was also a mortician at night, and she would answer questions about being a mortician. And one of the girls in the class asked a question about what happens when guys die of a heart attack. And I remember she got a look on her face and glared at her right off the bat. And she's like, it's exactly what you heard. And she's like, really? What's that? She's like, and you know, because I think she didn't think she would say it. She's like, sometimes they get an erection that lasts for ages. And then she proceeded to tell us the story of someone she knew who got fired for necrophilia because of having sex with a patient who died of a heart attack. And I'm just like, how is this allowed to be discussed in school? And I think she realized she was saying shit she shouldn't have, because she swore us all to secrecy. And there was a long time before she took any more questions about being a mortician. And who knows? It may not have been.
That's wild.
None of it could have been true. Anyway, you're up.
$10 from him. Riley says, "Hello, who am I talking to? Took me the fuck out. Fool got me laughing out loud and scaring the people dining in this Panera Bread. Anyways, thanks for the work, you guys. Keep it up."
Thank you very much. There's your kitty again.
This is number 2, and I got 2 of them.
I was like, that's a different kitty. Yeah. $10 from GeForce 2863. Let us praise Doug, who, when asked to turn water into wine, said that sounds like a lot of work, and instead made the water slightly more refreshing. #RHFD and justice for BMF.
And mineral enriched as well. $50 from Don Owen. Thank you so much. Says this is specifically to say fuck you to the trolls. Hope to help with those health insurance bills too. Cheers. Thank you so much, Don. Big W.
Yay. $10 from Covered by No Blood. Rainwood. It's Rainwood, but I'm not quite sure what's going on with that person's name. But yes. Thought to himself, I know how I'll convert them. I'll use the apologetics of Veggie Tales. If you know, you know. Nice. It is, yeah, let's find out more about the plants. The thing is, I got into plants a little bit. I love trees, and people kept calling in with the, look at the trees. And then I love looking at trees. I have, one of the first things I did was plant extra trees in our yard. But turns out I'm more of an animal guy, and it turns out I'm more of a reptile guy than I ever knew, and more than I am a mammal guy. Like, I thought I was just a python guy, and then we branched out, and I got corn snakes, king snakes, false water. I just got a new false water cobra today. I have pythons. I have multiple boas now. We have a pair of Dumeral's boas. We have a pair of Sonoran desert leopard boas, and we have a pair of Peruvian longtail boas, longicatas. And I can't wait. I'm finding out more and more about all of them, and even the ones that have been cantankerous. Like, I've got a Woma down in that tub right there that used to always bite, and now I'm getting to the point where she bites. She hasn't even tried to open her mouth the last 2 times, but she's still incredibly stressed. So I'm trying to get her de-stressed. But $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. There are plants that eat animals. Yes. Peanut fly traps and other stuff. Nepenthes pitcher plants. Yes. Have been documented as having rodents trapped in their pitchers and digesting them. There are other carnivorous plants as well. True. I just didn't want to get into all of it.
And 10 from Joshua Everett says, VA medical care literally saved my life. The quality of care is decent, a half grade above how good your local options are, and waits are generally shorter without referrals. Take whatever you rate. I mean, the reality is anyone who's used any type of socialized medicine, they typically love it. I mean, the only reason why people are against it is because, A, we haven't advertised for it the right way. Our slogans are shit. People don't explain it very well. And typically there's enough people in Congress that make enough money that don't want it to happen that, you know, it'll never make it to a vote.
Thank you, Joshua. $50 from OD8555. Wow, this is incredibly generous. I thank you so much. No, I didn't read it yet. Matt, are you convinced that a person can construct an objective morality based on virtue ethics? I don't think that any moral foundation can ever be anything other than subjective. But once you decide on a goal, I think it is entirely possible for there to be objective evaluations of the consequences of actions with respect to the goal. So I think you can construct a moral system where the evaluations are non-subjective, but the foundation, I don't know how you get around it being subjective. And the only hope that we have is that when we talk about morality, there's some concept that almost certainly overlaps virtually everybody. So are we talking about right behavior or better world or, you know, whatever language you're going to use? I think there's something we can describe that is virtually unanimous, at least among humans, as yes, that is the realm of morality and that's what we care about. But there's no non-subjective justification for why we care about it.
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Then you're right too.
And $10 from Jamie says, you know what's irrational? Understanding that your fear of snakes is irrational, but still being unreasonably afraid of them. I've never been afraid of being hurt. They just terrify me. I agree with that sentiment. It is irrational, to be sure. I think, though, possibly there's an evolutionary explanation for humankind's fear of snakes, but that's for a biologist to talk about, not me.
I think it's a bit of the unknown and a bit of the weirdness. The same reason why we don't like bugs, things with chitinous shells. Your bones are supposed to be on the inside, not spread out into some kind of structure and shell. But it's familiarity, because so I have some venomous snakes that are not harmful to humans. They're rear fang venomous. So not only have Western hognose snakes, I have cat-eye mangrove snakes and false water cobras, all of which, by the way, garter snakes, also rear fang venomous. They're just not going to be harmful to humans at all. You could let them chew on you for a long time and you might get a little bit of a swelling. And so there's something there that's justified, but there's so much mimicry and convergent evolution that how do you tell the difference between a milk snake and a coral snake? Well, they teach you a little rhyme. Red and yellow kill a fellow. Red and black friend a jack. The problem is that we know enough about morphology to know that isn't true universally and may only be true in regions. And so the better thing to teach everybody is if you're not supremely confident in what you're getting ready to touch, don't touch it. The snake doesn't need you to touch it 99% of the time. If you're trying to save its life, you can do it with a stick and any number of other things. And by and large, the only time you're going to get bit by a snake is when you're fucking with it in a way that you're not supposed to. If you leave it alone, they don't want nothing to do with it. You'd have to like accidentally step on it.
$20 from Rob Lex Props says, hi, Justin. I heard you mention in your stream that the Protestant Bible makes reference to writings in the Apocrypha. Can you give some examples, please?
Ooh, yes.
There's actually quite a few. And one of the most obvious is in Jude, verse 14, I believe. It's a direct quote from 1st Enoch. And the quote from 1st Enoch is actually quoted as prophetic. He quotes 1st Enoch chapter 1, maybe verse 9 or 10. And then he calls it a prophecy. So that's an obvious one. There is some that are less obvious. So in Sirach, there's a quote very similar to Jesus when he said, store up your treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, so on and so forth. That is in Sirach chapter 29. And I've actually got a list of them. If you have access to my deconstruction cheat sheet, I have a tab in my cheat sheet of all the passages from the New Testament that appear to be drawing on the Apocrypha. And I've got a special link to an additional document that shows the first 400 years, every quote that was ever made by the church fathers about the Apocrypha.
So I don't even know if I can show this. Nope, it's not set up right now. You guys have, if you watch regularly, you've already seen the e-sword.net tool that I use. And so if you go to Jude 1:14, because there's only the one chapter, but Enoch is 1802. But the nice thing about this tool that I use, it's the Greek 1802. It'll tell you everything you want about it, but it also tells you how many occurrences there are of that particular Greek word in, for example, the King James, whatever Bible you're using. So if you find something like that, like, oh, here's a reference to Enoch, and it could be a reference to the individual and stories about the individual or the actual deuterocanonical book. This will at least tell you how many references there are and allow you to go through those. It is like, I don't use it enough because I don't do as much Bible geeky studying as I used to. I'm getting ready to do a video maybe next month called "How Much of the Bible Do You Need to Know?" Because this is going to be me mildly bragging. Let's say the average Christian in the pew knows this much of the Bible. I know that much. Justin knows that much. There are other scholars that know more than that. At what point do you have enough information that knowing more becomes more about esoteric, narrow fine points that can be interesting, but not particularly edifying on either the doctrinal positions or on any attempt to discover what's true? Anyway, it's still percolating in my head, but it might be out next month. And spoiler alert, you don't need to know hardly any of it. But you should probably know some. 20. Oh, you did this one? Yes.
Yeah, I think we just did that one. Mm-hmm.
$10 from Jamnik. I know how you feel about puns, Matt. I've been telling poop jokes my whole life. Sometimes, like diarrhea, I just can't hold them in. Dad jokes are my favorite. But poop jokes, you should have put 2 T's on the butt there, Jamnik. But poop jokes are a solid number 2. Well done. The solid number 2 is way better than diarrhea. I agree. I like a solid number 2.
And 50 Aussie dollars from Primordial Puggles at our friend Jamnik says, I owe you a super chat. I don't know who owes who, but thank you for the super chat. And good to see you, Primordial, and good to see you, Jamnik.
That's fair. I got a note that there were 9 more, but that came 10 minutes ago, and who knows how many more are left now. But we're going to keep going. We're going to keep reading the super chats as long as you guys are sending them in, because Justin already said he doesn't have a bedtime, and my wife's not here, so I get to do whatever the fuck I want. Although our producer might put a stop to that at some point. $10 from SJL. The closest I ever got to everything is divine was whatever caused the Big Bang is God. Quickly realized it was useless belief and abandoned it 40 years and never looked back. Yeah, this is kind of what I was trying to get to with one of the callers. Even if God created, you knew that God created anything, what does it tell you? Even if you could come up with a God that you could view as it created everything, what does it tell you? And so even if you knew that God inspired something, if you have no way of telling what it is, it's useless. But also, if you admit that you have no way of telling that God inspired any specific thing, how do you know that God inspired anything? I had this argument with a physicist at the Church of Christ event thing I did in San Antonio, because he literally stood up in front of all these preachers, and none of them were going to challenge him on this, and said that we cannot know that God has answered any individual specific prayer, but we can absolutely know that God has answered prayers. And I challenged him on this, saying, how can something be true for the series if you can't demonstrate that it's true for any element within the series?
That's not how enumeration works, buddy.
Yeah, I shit you not, this physicist Church of Christ preacher who hadn't done any physics since he got his degree 30 some odd years before, looked at me like I had 3 heads and just repeated his statement. But you can know that God did it. You just can't tell that it was necessarily this one. Okay, which one can you tell? Like, how many royal flushes that were dealt were cheated? You don't know. Well, can you know that some of them were definitely cheated? No. Wait, yes? No. Oh shit, there I go again. Yeah, it was wild. So I never went, I don't think I spent much time at all on the everything is divine. I kind of had all my eggs in a very Southern Baptist basket. And when that fell apart, the first thing I did was start exploring other religions to find out, since mine and everything near mine, had to be excluded as likely true. What else was there? And I joke that I went and studied Buddhism first to find out if I would have multiple lives to explore this, because it's too much work for one life. And then actually I went and just studied philosophy. And once you start, go ahead, just as an exercise, make a list of various gods that have been proposed and circle the ones that are testable. And then go find
that
out.
could be a very big circle.
Yeah. Then go find out what you can say about that which is untestable.
$20 from Misha. Love that Shannon is back. I love hearing Matt and Shannon give dumb or bad faith people the verbal walloping they sorely deserve. I mean, it is fun to watch. That's for sure.
Shannon was so much fun. It was so good having Shannon on the show, and you're going to be seeing more of that too. So awesome. Thank you so much, Misha.
Yeah. She's sharp, man. Nothing gets by Shannon.
Oh, and she don't take no shit.
This is the last one.
This is the final one. 100. Holy crap. So first of all, Oda, I guess I owe you something. We'll have to figure out what it is, but you've been incredibly generous tonight, and I'm incredibly grateful. $100 from Oda to Justin. Post-Assyrian deconstruction of Samaria and Sumerian migration to Judah. The Hebrew Bible references a northern priestess named Deborah, confirming the contents of Deuteronomy. What's up with Deborah and how the Judean scribes used her for the narrative?
I mean, that's an interesting geopolitical question. I guess I've never actually considered if Deborah has an extra biblical ulterior motive. But if I had to guess, I would say the name Deborah was selected to draw on the older mythologies of the actual judge named Deborah. And this might give some validity to the Deborah. But that being said, this is not a question I've actually pondered before, so I don't know if I've got a great answer for it. The problem with Deuteronomy is that we pretty much know that it was composed during the reign of Josiah. It's kind of, typical consensus at this point. It's clearly not anywhere near as old as some of the other books of the Pentateuch. So, some of the stories from Deuteronomy and even about the finding of the book that they don't really call Deuteronomy, but the finding of it that we think is Deuteronomy, it seems to be contrived because the thing that you need is you need a backstory for people to think, why is this authoritative? Why do I care about this new book? Well, you care about it because fucking Moses delivered this right before we entered the promised land, right? So you need a backstory for the book to be accepted in the first place, right? So it's kind of it's the same reason why the unauthentic letters of Paul went as far as they did, because people believed it had authority. They believed it had authority because the source, they thought it came from Paul.
And I would suspect that even some people who didn't know or care if it came from Paul, even if they were to find out that a particular letter didn't come from Paul, they might still think it had the same authority, because once you get a letter, a narrative that is consistent with a particular doctrine enough to where, hey, it's like somebody showed me a video and it had the writing style and message of Aaron Ra. And I would be like, even if this didn't come from Aaron, it has a feel like Aaron, and it seems to be right. If we can do that with other stuff, it's not surprising to me that these passages come along. I don't know enough about Deborah and the contents of Deuteronomy, because much like my mom, there's a ton of the Old Testament I don't know enough about at all, which is one of the reasons I'm hugely glad that Justin's here, and hopefully that Justin and I do, I don't know, about 5,000 more of these shows or hangouts together and everything else, because Justin knows all the stuff that I don't know and actually give a shit about, and probably some stuff that I don't give a shit about. We can work on those things.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really appreciate talking about the Bible. So thanks for the Bible questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. If you like what's going on here and you need to let people know, you need to click like, you need to subscribe, you need to let people know what's going on and get more calls in here. The better the calls are, the better our responses will be. The more likely it's going to be that we're going to get Justin and others to come on more often, because we want to learn and we want to teach things. And we also want to try to make the world a better place. Please follow the line. Go to patreon.com/follow the line, or you can go to Line Merch to support us as well. And keep an eye out for LineCon Online. Meanwhile, there's a link getting ready to pop up on screen that I've already mentioned.